Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and today I'm joined by regular co-host, Mr.
Andy Conduit Tanner. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. All right?
Doing well, doing very well. And we're also joined by a very special guest. Becci Sayce is a freelance journalist for Metro, Digital Spy, Moving Pictures Film Club, and Ghouls Magazine. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the show, Becci. It's not like some sort of weird insiders club where you need a membership card. It's not.
It's a nice club, though.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And
very
to chat
excited.
about a very exciting brand new release as well. There's hype everywhere. There's hype all over the internet. And usually that can mean one thing. One of two things. The hype is warranted or the hype is not warranted.
We were saying before we recorded, this year I feel like I've fallen on the side more times than not of it not being warranted. For me personally, live your own lives, everybody. But I found that when a lot of releases over the last 12 months have had lots of hype, I've seen them and that hype has negatively impacted my experience of the actual film. This one, though, is it going to go the same way? Spoilers, it's not. I really liked it.
I don't know what. I kind of had a feeling about this one where almost sometimes like the less you see, the more more confident I feel about it. So trailer, I didn't feel like we ever did with the trailers. Didn't feel like everyone's reactions were, you have to see, talk to me, it will make you shit your pants.
Yeah, or like one of those little people outside like, oh, I was really scared I had to have ambulance come because I had a heart attack. And don't do
that. If a story is attached to any film where it says ambulances had to turn up because people were passing out in the aisles, I will actively avoid that film. Not because I think that's going to happen to me, but because I think bullshit.
You've got to see the asterisks on that. Things like ambulance called after man vomit, and then a little out underneath, man had drunk half a bottle of whiskey and and had been doing star jumps throughout.
It's unrelated. Becci, have you ever passed out because of a horror film?
I have not. I think the closest I've ever come is feeling really, really sick watching the first Terrifier. Very, very first time I watched that. Some of the gore in that made my stomach physically turn. I think that's the closest I've ever come to a reaction like that.
Yeah.
I was almost sick in a cinema once. I watched the last Paranormal Activity with a hangover. The Ghost Dimension. And I tell you what, the Ghost Dimension was doing nothing for how I was feeling pretty wampy already. I was
chundering.
I was feeling rough. I had to go out and go into the lovely cinema foyer toilets and listen to the calming music for a moment.
You couldn't have gone out and looked at the carpet in a cinema, especially an old cinema.
Make you feel worse. But it was a modern Cineworld, so it was all right. It was nice, but I couldn't stand any more of Toby's 3D antics. I was like, enough, Toby. I feel rotten, rancid.
I think Terrifier is kind of understandable because something about the gore in Terrifier, like it just doesn't look. It looks ridiculous, but at the same time, it's almost unlike anything you've ever seen before. So it's a bit like, okay, I get it, but it's pretty extreme.
It's so relentless as well in the story, especially even with the second one, which weirdly didn't make me feel sick. I think it's probably because I knew what to expect a little bit with it. And that was another one, like you say, that was really, really hyped up. So I sort of prepared myself for it. Whereas Terrifier, I went in completely blind. I did not know what to expect from it at all.
That's weird, though, isn't it? Because
what it was.
Yeah. And it's weird because I think in Terrifier 2 it's probably got the scene that is the most extreme out of either of those films, isn't it? And for gore, where you're just like, oh God, no, please stop. I don't know where to look. Should I be watching this? It kind of felt like that.
I'm talking with Terrifier. Maybe the first one when I think Terrifier, I think of the upside down soaring from the first one. That's where my mind goes to for shocking scenes. I feel like Bart Simpson's analogy for hell, the Terrifier series becomes a bit like a hot tub and you eventually get used to it. It's like, oh, okay, nice. I'm settled into it by number 2.
Like when you put a frog, no, I've ever done this, but was it supposed to be you'd like slowly warm some water in the frog and just sit there like, yeah, this is lovely until it's dead. That's horrible. Sorry.
Apparently that's not true. They get out. It's fine. Don't worry.
Do they? Yeah. They get out. They leap straight out. Of course they do.
Frogs are less stupid than we gave them credit for.
I don't think a film has ever made me feel like nauseous or sick, but one thing I'll mention about this film is that the sound design was very, very intense. And not in like a standard horror movie type of way, but like sometimes the loud noises were like really intense, and like I don't know if it's just because just the cinema I was in, but the surround sound was great to the point where there were 2 or 3 occasions where I was like, "What's that over there?" Oh, it's the film. Like I did just think, "What is that? Is that a noise in
Oh,
here, or is that in the film?"
I
And I
really
didn't
like the
like that.
voice work we get in this as well, like the bleeding of the characters' voices, doing really subtle like accent and then voice pitch and tone changes to be the person that is
Yeah,
in them at the time. It's really, really good.
I mean, good fun. I think as an actor, it would be to just go. Now you're possessed by a bloated woman who like drowned. Do it, and she's a little bit. Oh wait, I've just remembered one bit as well. Oh, the horniest ghost ever that ever did live or die. Sorry, the horniest ghost that ever did. Oh, that's horrific.
There's a
That would be what's
couple
happens to me. I would put it off for ages and ages. I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing it. And I do it, and it'd be a horny ghost who wants a French kiss a dog.
copping off with your dog.
Oh, no, I mean that was pretty uncomfortable. And the bit that got me the most was when it showed his hand like grabbing the dog's back, as if to say,
Get stuck
"Oh,
in, mate.
come a bit closer, mate. I'm loving this." Poor Cookie. Okay, we will have
More of that to come, everybody. That's the
more
teaser.
more of that to come. Yes, of course. Becky, have you written anything about Talk to Me that's been published anywhere?
I've not. No, I've not yet. I've pitched things all over the place. I do just want to talk about this film. It is so good, like we've sort of touched on already. For me, so far, it has been my film of 2023. Like I think everyone needs to
Wow.
see it and needs to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah, because I think as you already mentioned, Andy, there have been some films that have got some hype, but also some like bigger releases that perhaps have been a bit disappointing. And for this to be an original concept film, I think is probably the most impactful original concept film for me since It Follows. And I think it's had a bit of that comparison already, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Has it got that sort of feel to it? Is that because It Follows is It Follows A24? No.
I don't know, it's distributed, but I'd have to look. But I see what you mean with the parallels. It is like a new idea that has really, really strong like connections. And I feel like in both cases, if they were to make a follow-up, I would absolutely go and see it. If they never made another one again, I'd be perfectly satisfied. That's really like it's just such a strong
Yeah.
concept.
It
I
could
know that The
easily work.
Guardian have been describing this as this generation's Evil Dead as well,
Oh, really? Okay.
which I can also see.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
can
think it does have a lot of legs and a lot of mileage, and it
it's
does
got a
have the
bit
similar things as well, the possession in particular and how the people react to it.
the sort of like playfulness of it as well, isn't it? Where it kind of works really well. And a debut feature as well for the directors, which is in a way just showing off, isn't it?
Yeah, I really want to check out some of their YouTube stuff because that's where
Yeah.
they've done a lot of work, right? Is it are they twins?
Uh
Am I just
yeah,
adding
that's right.
wrinkles to their
No,
backstory?
they are twins, but one of them's got like bleach blonde hair, one of them's got dark hair. It's just confusing.
Oh, the
I got
opposites.
they're not the same. They're not twins. Yeah, so I think their YouTube channel is called Left on Red, where I think obviously they've made shorts and various things like that. But yeah,
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
we will go and check it out. Right, I guess we should delve into some horror news for this week. A couple of news stories for us to cover. There's a trailer for Saw X or Saw 10, which oddly seems to take place between Saw 1 and 2, which is
Yeah,
weird.
because old Jigsaw's back in action again. He's not dead. He's not just cassette tapes at the minute. At the moment, he's just poorly.
He's just poorly, and for some reason, like 20 years older than he was in Saw 1, which is strange.
It takes its toll on you when you're ill, doesn't it?
That's true. It takes its toll on you when you're ill, and all you've got time for is making the most complex, complicated traps for people to learn kind of a shit lesson that then you're going to kill them anyway.
This one just feels like a revenge, though. So from the trailer, it appears that it's the early days of John Jigsaw being poorly, and someone telling him, "Oh, tell you what, if you nip to this unnamed Central American country, you can have this operation and you'll be all right again. And he goes and he gets looked after, and then the trailer shows him obviously going back for some more scans, and someone going, actually, you're still chockers with cancer, mate. They haven't done a thing. They've just given you a lollipop and a sticker and sent you back home.
He travels to
having
Mexico
some
for
revenge.
a risky experimental medical procedure, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. So
I think he would have mentioned that in his previous films, wouldn't he? He said, Anna was scammed.
He's just fuming about getting scammed. Get over it, for God's sake. Leave a bad review on Google or Yelp or something and get on with your life, for God's sake. It's back for the untold chapter of Jigsaw's final games. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan. Becky, are you a big fan of the Saw franchise?
I do really like it.
You do
Saw.
like it, okay.
I wouldn't even say it's a guilty pleasure because I just can't bring myself to be guilty.
Legit love it. That's fine.
No how many times they bring Tobin Bell back, I'm going to go and see it. Even if they don't, I'm still probably going to go and see it.
Have they already done like a sort of prequel with Tobin Bell? Have they not already done that in anything? Have they done like, because I thought we saw flashbacks in something where he's got the backwards cap on to make him look young.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they don't bring the backwards cap back in this film, I'm going to be very upset.
How do you do, fellow kids? Yeah. What is all that about? I mean, to be fair, I'm not best placed to judge the Saw franchise because I've only seen the first 3 and then whichever one it was with Chris Rock, Spiral.
Book of Saw featuring Chris Rock cosplaying as a detective but with Zippy's personality, hates sharing, doesn't like giving anyone else the credit.
It's fuming. That was, to be fair, that was supposed to be like a new start for the franchise, wasn't it? But it fucked it up. Do you think people just want the back to basics stuff and they want characters they know? Yeah.
I think a lot of people have said that as well, like with the trailer and with the poster, it very much seems like it's sort of going back to the original sort of trilogy, which I think a lot of fans are excited for, and the trailer does seem to show that as well, so hopefully that is exactly what it is.
What's the long tubes on the eyes all about? I've only seen the poster, I haven't seen the trailer yet.
I'm not sure. It's either something horrible is going to go into it, or probably more likely something awful is going to come out of it.
Oh, Jesus.
Or he's got to think of really sad things. Only if you can fill this bucket. It's like Taskmaster. Dangerous. And it's like, only if you can fill this bucket with your tears. And we're like, oh, I'm really sorry. Cry. I
don't think I've got enough tears in my body.
Yeah.
You got to drown. There's like a creature in a bucket, and you've got to drown it with your own tears. Otherwise, it leaks up and crawls up your eyes.
Yeah. Oh, it could be those piss fish, but in your eyes.
Not a piss fish. What, the ones that go straight up your delicate.
Yeah,
urethra.
The piss fish. That's what it's called. That's what scientists call it.
I'll just call them a piss fish. Yeah, they love it. Little warm stream straight up there.
If you are pissing in the jungle, everybody do sprinkle. Thrash it about a bit. Make sure there's no continuous stream to make sure no piss fish can get you.
But if you shake it more than twice, you're playing with it. Who said that? Good Charlotte. Someone said that.
Good Charlotte. Yeah. My big hope for Saw X or 10. Is that I hope the lessons that he goes into. I'm very happy because these people have scammed him that it might just be a straight up, I'm not teaching you a lesson, I'm having a revenge. And then maybe he picks up the lessons at the end. But
I don't like it when his lesson
I'd like to avoid is that the lesson, because I think as the series went on, like we went from the lessons of the first one, like, oh, hey, Lee Winnell, Adam, you're a horrible, scummy bloke, and you take pictures of people having affairs to basically blackmail them. That's bad. Learn a lesson. All right, Amanda, you do loads of drugs. That's bad. Learn a lesson. But by the time you've got to like Saw 4, it's like you, person who was a minor character who led the SWAT team in number 2, you try really hard at your job to save everyone. I'm going to fucking teach you that you can't save everyone. Yeah. Those are admirable qualities.
Learning lessons about things you don't need to learn lessons about. Jesus.
Yeah.
Horrific. You ate the last wagon wheel. You didn't leave any for any of your family members. And it was a jam. And it was a jam one. Now you have to eat wagon wheels for the rest of time until you explode.
If you stop eating wagon wheels, you'll die. Or like just lessons that don't need learning, or ones where I know narratively it goes into the fact that whoever takes over, the guy that in my head looks like the chef from Saturday Kitchen. When the FBI man who's the Saturday Kitchen presenter takes over, he actually makes traps that are inescapable, so they're not Jigsaw traps. So then Jigsaw, who the second after his diagnosis just began recording tapes, has revenge on him.
See, even now, right, my problem with the franchise is that it gets so complicated that I just check out mentally and I'm not interested anymore. Even you describing it then, I checked out mentally.
Like,
sorry, Andy.
No,
I'm really
right.
sorry to say that. Also, funny you should mention the chef from Saturday Kitchen because he's in hot water recently, not literally, for being rude to his staff. So Jigsaw should get involved and teach him a lesson.
If you were Jigsaw, would you make his lesson about having really good manners or having to be rude so much that you'd never want to be rude again?
Either or, I reckon. Either or will work. I reckon just, I don't know. Who knows? He's got one of his faces.
Right. Call your mum a bitch to her face or a bear trap's going to go off on her. Oh, I don't want to, Jigsaw, please. Go on, say all the swear words, to your nan. Oh, fucking hell, Jigsaw. Oh, that's one of them. That's a green light.
I can't, not to my nan, my delicate, lovely, lovely nan. Go on, call her a bitch. No!
Oh, I can't, Jigsaw, please. This is the worst.
My head just... Sorry. I was
Some of those things may or may not be
worse than bitch.
But yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it. I am going to go see it at cinemas.
It's out September the 29th or something like that. I don't know why they pulled it forward from... Well, it's pretty much October, isn't it? So,
you want a good run towards October, right? Get an extra weekend out of it.
Do I need to watch the other ones though? I mean, I probably do. I don't know if I could. I couldn't live with myself if I just went and watched Saw 10 after only seeing Saw 1, 2, and 3 and Spiral.
I think you could get away with it.
Yeah.
I think you could get away with it because I think to a degree they have given up that you don't have to have seen everything at this point, especially as this is a back in the day chapter. In fact, the ones that you've seen might lean into it very well because you don't know anything about James Martin being his apprentice.
That's his name, James Martin. I was thinking that.
Took me a minute. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'll check it out. So next piece of news I've got is that a movie called Whale Fall, which is a feature adaptation of Daniel Krause's aquatic horror novel, is in the works. I think this book only recently came out. Oh, wait, no. It's scheduled to publish on August the 8th. So it's not even out yet. And they're going, get a film made of this. A scuba diver in search of his deceased father's remains gets swallowed by an 80-foot, 60-ton sperm whale and only has 1 hour to escape before his oxygen runs out. Jesus.
Does the whale tell him that? Or like Jigsaw style?
How does he know he's only got 1 hour?
Did you just have a look around the whale and then calculate the oxygen capacity?
About an hour. About an hour to get out of his sperm whale's stomach. I guess it sounds more like a sort of single location horror movie where we're against the clock, like 127 hours or Buried,
just 1 hour,
example. Just 1 hour, yeah, exactly. Stuck inside a sperm whale. Can you imagine, like, if you had to make the set for that? Can you do the inside of a sperm whale, please? Just can you mock up the inside of a sperm whale? Yeah, yeah.
Your advantage there is that not many people know what the inside of a sperm whale looks like, but it's dark.
That's true. All except
We'll have to get out in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then they'll live to tell the tale. Didn't you, like, Pinocchio get swallowed by? I understand it's not a real life.
He's a little wooden boy, though.
Oh yeah. Does he need to breathe?
I don't know that about Pinocchio, but his dad's in there as well, so he's got to get him out at very least.
You tell loads of lies and make your nose come out the blowhole and signal for help.
You could harpoon him. That's how you could get him. Right, let me out, otherwise I'm going to start absolutely fibbing my nuts off until you've been spiked. That's
true. He wouldn't believe you though. Has there been like a how many whale horror movies are there? I mean, I did recently watch Orca, Killer Whale, but how many other like? I guess you could say Moby Dick is in itself a bit of a horror.
Moby
film.
Dick, The Heart of the Sea, which is Chris Hemsworth vehicle, sort of about Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Every David Attenborough documentary ever about the sea
has
got a whale being evil.
Well, a whale being evil.
Usually
they are evil, aren't they?
Drowning people in as cruel a way as possible.
Deliberately killing baby seals or something along those lines. They're always the villains in these documentaries.
Killer whales like eat the liver of things, don't they? Give me that liver.
They eat sharks' livers as a delicacy.
Oh,
I've
lovely.
not heard that before. See, that's another reason.
Well,
I mean, we as humans probably can't come at them too hard, but
Well, they're coming at humans pretty hard at the moment, aren't they? Killer whales smashing
we deserve it.
yachts out of the water. Yeah, super yachts. Get out of the water.
People who own yachts, argue they deserve it. Sorry, everybody. So
just billionaires.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many billionaire listeners we've got. So,
hang on a minute, give them a chance. All right. No, I'm joking.
It'll trickle down eventually, Ben. Honest.
They bloody earned that. No, I'm joking. Okay, moving on from killer whales to killer sloths. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? There's a movie for a horror comedy called Slaughterhouse.
Love it.
There's a trailer out now.
Title.
Alpha is the killer sloth in new horror comedy from Gravitas Ventures. Yes, that's the name of the company. Directed by Matthew Goodhue. A horror comedy tells the story of college senior Emily Young, who aims to be voted president of her sorority until, I mean, that sentence up until this part. Oh, yeah. Until the killer sloth threatens to ruin it all.
So she's at risk of not winning the election because of the killer sloth.
Yeah. Democracy rules, and so does 3 razor-sharp claws, apparently. It says, will this deaf sloth with 3 razor-sharp claws be too quick for them? Is it like a fast one then? Or is it still moving slow?
We'll have to watch it to find out.
Is it like a Michael
Sounds like an excellent pairing, Ben. We can finally watch Shakma for the show.
I love Shakma.
Do a double bill.
We've definitely not had a killer sloth in a movie before, though, have we?
Almost certainly not.
But
I'm comfortable enough to say no.
I have always been of the opinion that sloths are kind of creepy, especially when they're like wet. Like, have you ever seen a wet sloth like trying to cross a road in like
I can't say
Colombia? I've seen loads of videos of wet sloths trying to cross the road in Colombia. All right, maybe just one, but it's horrific. I'm like, what on earth is that? You must have seen a picture of like a shaved bear or something.
Yeah,
it's all flaps of skin. It looks like that, but long and thin and scary. And the sloth in this movie looks odd. It looks kind of feminine. It looks like it's got really long hair and a little panda face. I'm kind of scared of it already. I don't know if I can look at it anymore.
But it's bad, right? Slaughterhouse. Get it on the watch list, everybody.
The poster is 3 sloth claws dripping with blood. Oh, there's another picture of the sloth. It looks like the sloth driving a car. Surely not.
Don't say any more, Ben. I'm already going to go and see it.
That's one step too far, right? Although killer sloth I can deal with, but driving a car, not believable.
Can only suspend disbelief so far. How about you, Becci? Are you a fan of a creature feature, a deadly animal?
Oh, absolutely. The more ridiculous, the better. I'm really looking forward to the Meg 2 coming out. I'm going to be front row.
Hell yes.
Experiencing the Megalodon again.
Front row. Literally, the Meg is going to be bigger than ever. Front row.
Exactly. That's what
biggest IMAX possible. I'd like to watch this in super IMAX, please. But madam, no such screen exists. Build one. The customer is always right. Can
you get in that 4D or whatever it is, where you're like in a chair and just someone's throwing a bucket of water in your face?
Sprayed in you. Yes.
That's worth it. Awesome. That is pretty much it for, I'd say, a very interesting section of horror news for this week. Sometimes it can be difficult to find stories to talk about. This week, no such problems. So yeah, there we go.
Slaughterhouse.
Thanks to Slaughterhouse. Yeah, of course. I guess now we'll just talk about what we've been watching for the last 7 days or maybe more. Anything horror or horror adjacent that you want to recommend or not recommend? Becci, is there anything that you have seen recently that you'd like to discuss?
The main thing I've been rewatching recently is Buffy the Vampire Slayer from start to finish.
Very nice. Very nice.
No, it's really, really enjoying reliving it again. Although, unfortunately, I watched it with my eldest. Well, I say fortunately, unfortunately. Fortunately, because originally she was really enjoying it. Unfortunately, because I'd got it on the season where it's the episode with the gentleman. I don't know if you remember it, with the weird floating characters, and it has scared the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Oh no, it can't be back on.
Oh, no.
She's awake. So that plan has been abandoned too. Sharing our moments over Buffy.
They're in more than one episode as well, aren't they? Did they linger around for a bit? I can't remember.
Oh no, I only remember them being in one.
Okay, that's fine then. You can just tell her it's only one episode. They won't come back.
Just your dreams forever, Ben.
I don't think she'll trust me ever again to show her anything.
Is it as good as you remember it being?
I hate to say no because Sarah Michelle Gellar is just an icon. I love the series, but some of it definitely hasn't aged well. But then some of it was better than I thought. Like the same season with I forget what they're called now. The Institute or the Initiative. That's it. With the Initiative, that's a lot better than I remember it being. I remember really not liking that the first time that I watched it. And the second time around, I've enjoyed it a lot more.
Are the Initiative the people that have like cyber vampires in like an underground base?
Oh yeah, these are the ones, when they were putting chips into the vampires' heads, the sort of ghost army.
Yeah. My experience of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, having not caught it, apart from that episode with the ventriloquist dummy, the only episode of Buffy I've seen, is just from E4 adverts. So my entire context for that series is adverts when it was rerun on E4. I'm pretty pleased with myself. I picked up the Initiative from that.
That's good.
I bet that's their name.
I did recently play the PS2 game Buffy the Vampire Slayer Chaos Bleeds. And it plays really well. Like for it's like 20 years old. And you know, it's one of those games where you think, oh, made to go in conjunction with a TV show, probably not great. Still good. I think it's all the original voice actors as well. Or the original actors doing the voices, I mean. That's pretty cool. Anything else?
I'm gonna add that to my list.
Oh yeah. I think I found it in like a CX and just for like £4 or something. I was like, hell yeah. Anything else at all? Is that mainly it, Becky?
So other than that, I've been sort of preparing for Fright Fest, obviously at the end of this month, sort of getting my screeners in, reviewing the films. And my absolute number one I've watched so far has been Good Boy, that is being shown at the cinema.
I've been writing up Good Boy for my second round of previews. It looks really interesting.
It is wild.
Oh wow! So it's like
wild.
Is it like a doll? Is that right?
No.
It is not.
Good Boy is from the synopsis. Spoilers! I'm going to release this on our second load of Fright Fest previews shortly, everybody. But Good Boy is one of the things that caught my eye in the film lineup, and it is about a lady gets into a new relationship, goes to stay with. Is he some kind of therapist? And he has a dog who is a good boy that is a man dressed up as a dog, and she sort of accepts it that okay, this is therapy for this guy.
Wait,
but things are getting a little bit creepy.
Yeah, he's a millionaire that she sort of meets through a dating app, and her friend sort of like, she goes back to his house and then meets his dog and realizes it's like it's a family friend of his that is dressed up as a dog.
That's really strange. That's like
a strange relationship.
Life imitating art. Have you seen that story this week about some guy who like spent 20 grand to look like what? Lassie.
Yeah, this dog is way creepier. But it seems like when I watched it, I thought this is going to be the twist. It's just going to be about this strange relationship with this dog, but so much more happens in it. It is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
For some reason,
Essentials. I think that's the that might be on the Monday.
Horrific.
I think.
I think it is. Yeah.
You get like creep vibes
before I go home.
Oh, it's so creepy. Some of it is so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Does it remind you of Creep in a way? Because it gives me even looking at the pictures, it reminds me of like Peach Fuzz in a way where I'm like, oh god, no. I think it was originally called. I think it was originally called Me, You, and Frank because I think it may have been changed to be called Good Boy. Yeah, the reason I thought it was a doll was because I searched Good Boy and I think there's a film called Pretty Boy, which was at Fright Fest a couple of years ago, which I got confused with. This looks genuinely pretty horrific, right?
Yeah, it looks really exciting. So you say you've already seen it in full, Becky, right?
Yes, yeah, I watched it like to review ahead of the festival, and like without saying too much about it, it's definitely been one of my highlights so far. There's a lot of great films coming to Fright Fest this year in general, but it's definitely been one of the little hidden gems. I think because I went into it completely blind, I didn't really know what was going to happen, and I definitely wouldn't have guessed where it was going either.
Oh, I'm so excited for this. I feel like we've gone the other way. Previous Fright Fests, we haven't been there live, and our month in the run-up to it has been almost exclusively watching screeners back to back to back to see how much stuff we can manage to cover in time for the show. This time, because we're actually going to be there live for the first time, so we're going to be in London to do it all, we haven't pursued screeners as we normally would because we're actually going to be there. So I feel we're just going to go away for a weekend and burn our eyes out by watching endless movies.
Yeah. But we'll
I'm
have to make
just
sure
gonna
we
take
see
like
Good Boy, definitely.
I might bring myself like a camel pack with water in, like bring myself some snacks.
It has to be
See
done, doesn't
how
it?
see what, because there's all three of us going, so we're gonna see what percentage of the thing we're gonna go away together and not see each other, because it's like, right, we're all in different screens. Go.
See you later. Looking forward to it though, and definitely going to be checking out Good Boy.
Good
I'll
Boy
add that.
looks really, really interesting.
I'll
Yeah,
add that
definitely.
to the list, most definitely. Anything, Andy, this week?
Couple things for you all, Ben. I've been catching up on a few bits. One of them we've shared, so we'll cover that when with yours. But remember last week when I told you all about having seen Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou.
Yes.
Now you picturing Mary Lou from the image of I told you about last time, like Carrie, but she is a ghost and has loads of sex now and is a baddie. Well, keep picturing her, and then get ready for her to return in Prom Night 3, The Last Kiss. So, whereas Prom Night 2 abandoned the premise of the original and went in a completely different direction, Prom Night 3 carries things on more directly. So, we have another young boy, not the greatest bloke, by modern standards, because he immediately has an affair with a ghost woman and thinks it's okay because
Oh,
his
I don't
girlfriend.
count if it's a ghost. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it. Don't count.
because his girlfriend is incredibly unreasonable by saying, "Do you want to come away with me for the summer?" When your mate is also going, "Do you want to come away with me on a road trip?" Hang on, absolute chaos. The dog's running riot in here. So yeah, not as strong as the absolute bonanza that was the second one, but more of the same. There is a ghost. There's a ghost. There's antics. There's quite graphic murders that happens because as part of this affair, Mary Lou is in love with this male lead on this one, and she like kills people that slightly wrong him. Like a teacher sympathetically gives him an F on a test because he does badly on it, and that is
sympathetic F.
Yeah, no, he genuinely gives him an F and go, "Oh, sorry, kid." But then, as doing that, that is enough. That is enough of a discretion for Mary Lou to appear as a candy seller and stab him through the hand with ice creams, very pointy cones.
Very specific method of killing.
I watched that. I'm edging closer to the end of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosity, and another one of them called The Viewing, which I wasn't sure I was going to like until it could have gone either way. It could have stayed quite bizarre and non-linear and kind of nothing happening at the end, and I was like, okay, this is going to sink or swim on the ending, and the ending really landed it. It was really good. I loved the insanity that ensues in the ending of that piece. And then aside from movies and telefilms, oh no, sorry, one more film. I watched Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, an anthology story that has stories from George A. Romero. It has people, and it has a story from Stephen King in there, like 4 shorts. Got a very young Christian Slater in it. It's got Debbie Harry in there as well. Steve Buscemi's in it as a student when he actually was talking to fellow young people. It's a good bit of 90s schlocky horror. But if you like things like Creepshow, you will enjoy that. That was a lot of fun. But movies aside, I did some reading. Well, I completed a series of reading. Last couple of years, I've been enjoying Tom Taylor's run, DC Comics, Deceased, which when I began reading the first one, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, okay, I've seen Marvel Zombies. Is this just a DC version of that? It's going to be the Justice League with, this person's a zombie now and what have you. And I thought it was going to be a fairly simple lift and I wasn't going to get much from it. But over the course of this series, so it began with Deceased, which very quickly goes beyond just being a zombie thing. It has some really genuine moments of loss. It has some really good character growth. It has some real good depth to it. Then there were loads of side stories, The Unkillables, which was really good. It's about people who can't be infected because they're either already dead, be interesting. Dead Planet, which was a sequel to it, which is like coming back to a zombie infested world and trying to actually put some hope into it. And it was really, really good. And then it ended with the one I read this last week, which was War of the Undead Gods, which is when a story that begins as like an Earth-based zombie story with all of your favorite superheroes in it, becoming like a big, huge cosmic battle thing. If you are a Justice League fan, DC Comics fan, just like big epic comic storytelling. Really, really dug this series a lot. Artwork's gorgeous for all the various teams that worked on it, but it tied up really, really nicely. It's a good epic thing, and I think it's fairly regularly on sale on most of your digital comic platforms as well. It's worth picking up.
Sweet. Yeah, I've been meaning to check that out. Only a couple of things for me this week. Did we mention Resident Evil Death Island last week?
That's the one I said was going to be the one that we had together, because I know we both watched it.
Yeah. So we watched Resident Evil Death Island, the new animated Resident Evil movie. Becky, I don't know. Are you a fan of the Resident Evil films or games, or you interested in any of that?
I've only played the games a little bit. I've mostly watched my husband play them because I do get really, really freaked out by horror games. I think there's something about like sort of playing it and being involved in the horror that really gets to me a lot more than the films do. But I'd seen the TV show. I wasn't a huge fan of that. And I have seen the films before, but I've not seen the new animated film.
Well, the animated films have kind of been quite hit and miss. Unfortunately, most likely miss. But this one kind of looked interesting because it's got all like the main protagonists from the games. Jill, Chris, Leon, Claire, and Rebecca all together. But the story was just a bit cookie cutter basic, really. I mean, it takes place on where does it take place?
Alcatraz,
that's it. I was like, takes place on bloody Prison Island.
Prison Island.
And that's kind of interesting, like a new sort of place for it to take place. But standard stuff, a big bad with a plan for world domination, and that was kind of it. And the rules for infection, which was like, oh my god, you don't even have to be bitten to be infected now. It affected everybody immediately except the main characters, right?
Yeah, they just get sick for exactly long enough before the cure can be delivered to them. They're like, oh no,
yeah,
I'm infected. I'm going to be a zombie any minute.
I mean, it looks great. It looks great. It's probably like the best looking animated thing that's hyper realistic in terms of the animation style I've ever seen.
Perfect, right? Like they look like the animated sections of the games running on the best hardware right now.
Definitely. But it was pretty disappointing. Did you feel the same, Andy?
Yeah, I think character-wise, they're very good at doing these characters in action. You can do cool little action beats with them. You can do things that you can imagine being in a game, but they really struggle to have these characters relate to each other or talk to each other in non-combat scenarios. So they're very good at doing like a little one-liner when, like, they're being chased down a sewer tunnel by loads of monsters, going, oh, how many are there? And then they blow something up and he looks back and goes, none. They can do things like that, but then when they're like doing like trying to do a bit of exposition or trying to go into what the relationship, or try to let them have normal relationships, it's just like you're a kid doing a story and you're bashing your action figures together. I'm not sure they know how to.
Yeah.
I don't think they've given them, and because they come from games, and the depth of those characters is the weight you put into them yourselves as you played through those with them, or through supplementary material like books and so on, or the files that you read and the things like. We haven't got, comparative to lots of other characters that have been around for this period of time, that amount of shared dialogue together that you've actually ever seen them have for them to lean into.
I mean, it feels like as Resident Evil fans, we're eating good because there's so much stuff coming out. However, it's apart from the games, it's rarely that entertaining. So, pretty disappointed. But I'm kind of used to it. I'm bloody used to it.
I don't know how. Maybe it's just the algorithms that serve me things, but this feels like one of those things that I'll forget it's existed, and then Facebook video, to avoid copyright, or play it slightly sped up and with slightly distorted sound, and be like, show a scene out of context, and there'll be loads of comments and what's this from? What's this?
What was this? I want to watch that.
Yeah, they serve well in those little like 5-minute snippets, but it's a hard sell for a full film.
So off the back of watching Jules 2 last week for our episode, I watched Orca, one of the Jules ripoffs. This was another film that got discussed in the Sharksploitation documentary. This came out in 1977, so right off the back of Jules as well. And I don't know if you can really call it a Jules ripoff because it is a completely different story. I want to say that Richard Harris, who plays the main character, Captain Nolan, got a bit of a thing for this Orca. It's not like he wants to kill it because he hates it. It's like kind of loves it, or maybe I don't know. It is very, very strange. There's loads of weird like close-ups of his face, like after he's thrown like a harpoon at this orca.
Sure.
Yeah, like, oh, you big scary bastard. You wait till I get my hands on you. But apart from that, it's really strange soundtrack. Like, I'm pretty sure I have to confirm this because I'm pretty sure I saw it come up, but I think it might be Ennio Morricone doing the soundtrack. So it doesn't feel like a horror film or like a sort of creature feature or anything like that. It's got this weird, like, whimsical. It's a love story. I'm gonna come out and say it. It's a love story. There's a man who like lost his wife. There's a man who like lost his wife to something. I can't remember what it was. Orcas. And then he goes and kills this orca's wife. So in a way, he's like, I'm just like you. We're both the same, but the orca wants to kill him, and he wants to kill the orca as well. But it's almost like they're like, why can't we just be friends? But I'm gonna murder you.
They only stopped for a minute to think about how they were the same, and instead of how they were different, then who knows?
It's pretty naff. However, the finale is quite good, I would say, because it's not like a standard finale. It doesn't like go, oh, now it's just those two left together. It kind of like takes it somewhere completely different to where the rest of the film is set, and it's got some good visuals. So yeah, I like that.
Are there orca sequels that we can look forward to?
I don't think so. I think that might have been it.
One and done.
Which is strange, really, because they always go, this orca, because I think they do show it. Did they show this or did I imagine this? I swear there's a bit where there's a shark and then you're like, oh no, there's a shark. And then it just gets destroyed by a couple of orcas and you go,
just that real life.
See that they're not scary at all. Orcas are the things we should be afraid of. And the only other thing I've watched this week is I went back and tried to start again Hannibal. Now, so this TV show, the Mads Mikkelsen TV show. Either of you two seen Hannibal? Are you a fan?
I started it and then never finished it. I don't know
exactly,
why. I didn't enjoy
that's
what
exactly
I
me.
saw.
Andy?
I got almost to the end. I really loved Hannibal. Like, how many seasons are there? 4?
3. And I think the third series ends on like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And then it got cancelled, didn't it?
That was it. So I think there was a big gap between 2 and 3. So series 1 and 2, Karen and I watched it. We really loved it. We really looking forward to season 3. Season 3 is an unusual start. I think discourse at the time, I think reviews like this has gone so far up its own arse, it's unbelievable. And then we still were watching it. We were getting along with it. We were watching it, and then I think there was something like we had it on a TiVo box or something like that, and then we changed providers or we changed units, and we lost the ones that were recorded when we hadn't watched them, and it wasn't on the streaming service, so we just fell off it. And then we heard it had been cancelled, so when it turned up on Netflix, I was like, well, that's a cliffhanger that's never going to be resolved then. So like many series that I'd quite enjoyed,
it's a cliffhanger that's never going to be resolved, but maybe you could make of it. Yeah, so I watched the whole first series, and I even found tweets of mine from 2013, not dodgy tweets. They're going to get me cancelled anyway. They were all above board and fine.
I think Hannibal was right, actually. But
basically, I was going, Hannibal's a load of old shite. I watched season 1 and I'm so bored. But I kind of thought, maybe 10 years later, maybe I'm less of a twat. I don't know, but I'll try it. So I'm 5 episodes into series 1, and I got to admit, and I keep getting told it gets better and all those things. I can't bloody stand it. I've got to put it out there. It's so pretentious. It is so complex without needing to be. It introduces like serial killers, and then it goes, yeah, that serial killer we've introduced has got a really good, really interesting MO, and they're a really interesting character, because this could change everything we know about this series. As we've caught them. What's
captured,
that?
Arrested,
captured. We've captured them. How'd you do that then? We got this fella here, and he's basically like Sherlock Holmes, and he can go into a mind palace and work it all out.
When he does like rewind. He does like Batman Detective.
Can't stand that stuff,
fun, doesn't he? He's like, this is my
rubbish.
Design.
This is my design based on what? That's rubbish. I hate the fact that the only thing that's kind of interesting is the fact that Hannibal is kind of like, he's like the puppet master and making everything go. But it's pretentious. It's full of dream sequences. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I'm watching something going, oh, this is interesting. What's going on here? Fucking dream sequence, isn't it? For God's sake.
I'm trying to think of like things that have got you cancelled from the past now. And Freddie Lounge is a woman. Oh my goodness, this is Erasing male characters. How dare
I don't
you?
remember it. Oh right, okay. Oh, so like a famous.
That's what you tweeted in 2013.
I love the books, and I love Silence of the Lambs. I think Silence of the Lambs is a perfect film. I think the other films not so much. However, I feel like I understand enough about these characters to know how they work in some ways and not in others. And I just think this series just seems to it's all style over substance. I feel like if you can't explain to me what the plot of the first series is in like 2 sentences, then what's the point? Like my partner Charlie, she's like, "Oh, you just got to have some patience. This gets better. It's this and that." And I go, "Well, explain to me what's going on there." And she goes, "Well, there was this killer, and he was doing this, but then they caught him, and then there was a copycat, and then they caught him, but then they got this." I just can't. I can't. I've got no time for it. And she's like, "You're just stupid. You just don't understand it. It's too complicated."
You don't understand high drama. You can't understand this. You can't understand Rick and Morty. What do you know? What do you know, Ben?
I just think it's just too complex. And I was comparing it to something like True Detective, where series 1 is like one of the most perfectly well balanced, like tightly knit, lovely, like killer dramas, whereas Hannibal is just like, oh yeah, we've got that character who's a cannibal. Oh yeah, that's it. That's all we need to worry about.
Or is he going to get caught one day, or is he going to be a big stag in a dream? Who knows?
Well, he's not going to get caught one day, is he? Because he's Hannibal, and we understand
Graham knows
it.
that he's a stag, once he realizes that stag with Mads Mikkelsen's face but stag antlers is his brain telling him that Hannibal's the baddie, he'll be straight on it.
I'll tell you what's good. Manhunter. Ever seen that film? Great. Brian Cox, not the astronomy guy, the other one, as Hannibal Lecter. That is an amazing film. Not as good as Silence of the Lambs, but amazing film. I'll go and watch that instead. Is that all right? That's where I'll be.
Yeah, you can do that. But you've started now, Ben. I know what you like. You're a completionist. You are going to watch it, aren't you?
I might have to. I don't like to be a negative Nancy. I'm really sorry. So I'm going to put that to one side and move on to...
Don't apologise for having a bit of negativity, Ben. You know why? There's such a thing as toxic positivity as well. You haven't got to be positive about anything. You're allowed not to like a thing. You didn't say that you didn't like it because they changed one character to be a woman.
The thing is,
never say that.
The thing is, though, I think in the horror world, a lot of people do think it's great, and of course that's fine. But I'm almost annoyed because I'm like, I should like it. It's got all of the elements of something that I should enjoy. I enjoy the books. I enjoy Silence of the Lambs. I'm frustrated that I'm not into this, if that makes sense.
Oh, on paper, Ben, I should love Ready Player One, but got through 2 chapters and like, oh my God, no more, please.
Yeah, too many. Yeah, exactly. You can have too much of a good thing. Okay. But yeah, let's move on. Leave that negativity behind. Let's move on to the film of the week, which is what we're all here for, to discuss. Talk to me. Come on and talk to me. Which is brand new, brand spanking new in cinemas this week or last week. Becky's seen it twice. Did you see it in cinemas both times?
Yes, the first time I'd gone to a press screening, like to see it just ahead of time, and then I'd seen it when it came out as well.
Yeah. Did you go to the press screening where they actually had the hand?
No, this was one that was in Birmingham. Where was one that they had the hand?
I think it might have been London, yeah. There was like a screening.
It's always London.
It's
always bloody London. I would have just taken it. I would have gone, I'm having that hand. Give it here. So, Talk to Me is a 2022 Australian supernatural horror film directed by Danny and Michael Philippou in their feature film debut. It's written by both of them, and the concept was by Daley Pearson. Daley Pearson's gone, I've got a concept, lads, right? Listen to this. And they've gone, give it us. So yeah, it stars Sophie Wilde, Alexandra Jensen, Joe Bird, Miranda Otto, Otis Dhanji, and Zoe Terakes. And the plot is a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand. They become hooked on the new thrill until one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. I mean, I never thought that for a second. They're going to go too far and it's going to go wrong. Surely not. This is fine. This is faultless.
Yeah, trust teenagers with your life.
Yeah. So it's got 7.5 on IMDb. It's got a Rotten Tomatoes score of 94% critics and 82% audience score. 3.7 on Letterboxd, and some choice reviews from Letterboxd are: Cinema Joe says, "Terror incarnate, a movie that will gnaw at your soul and consume your spirit. The future of horror is in a very good hand." 4 stars. Aaron says maybe the real horror was the crazy frog ringtone. 3.5 stars. I mean, that bothered me. If I had to hear it once, it would have been fine. But it happened like 5 times. Get that phone on silent. You're a Gen Z?
You're in hospital.
That phone should be on silent, especially in
I
hospital.
am 40 years old and I never have my ringer on. Come on.
Well, I saw this recently. A few people discussed it on Twitter. Years ago, we used to pay money to have the best polyphonic ringtone that money could buy. Your favorite song. Nowadays, my phone, if there's an emergency, I'm screwed because my phone is on silent at all times.
It's also always in your pocket though, so
that's true. But all night, like if anyone needs to get out, I mean, to be fair, if you want to get hold of me at night, the bad things already happened, right? There we go. Yeah. So Aaron gives it 3.5 stars. Regal says, well, this got out of hand. 5 stars.
Very good, Regal.
And Seth's reviews, unexpectedly silly, confrontational, and creepy. 4 stars. There weren't, to be fair, it was one of those where there weren't many negative reviews. There were a handful of negative reviews, but they didn't seem to be like justified or funny. So I didn't include.
Okay, if you're going to do a negative review, at least make it funny. Otherwise, your opinion doesn't count. So
yeah, exactly. So obviously, Becky, you're probably a bit more well versed than us to discuss how much you liked it because you've seen it twice. So I'm assuming that going back for more meant you're a fan.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Sort of going into it, I wasn't 100% sure what to expect because I loved the trailer. I thought exactly like you did. It sort of didn't show too much and sort of balanced a nice line of being creepy. But I thought, oh, is it sort of misleading us? Is it not really going to live up to the expectations? I really, really thought it did. I thought the atmosphere created in it was just perfect. It's a real slow burn horror. It really grips you from the first scene and then really takes it back down. So it really works up to the scares in the main storyline. And I just think it's fantastic. And the themes that it deals with within, they're just so complex and they're handled so poignantly and so sensitively alongside the horror that I think it's a real experience. Like, I didn't expect to go into it and leave it like sort of upset. Like, it did make me cry the first time I watched it, a certain scene in it. I was really, really surprised by what it tackled.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. On the surface, you might go, elevated horror. Grief is being used as a metaphor in a way. We've seen it all before. But I really didn't feel like that. I all felt like everything it dealt with, like you said about the complex themes it dealt with, it dealt them in a really interesting way. All these characters are incredibly complex. All their relationships with each other are complex and unique. Like, I kind of felt like that. And yeah, in terms of the scares, they feel earned, don't they? And I mean, very little in terms of jump scares, but I think the sound design was kind of part of that. The fact that it didn't kind of want to hit you with these big shrill violins when there were big scares and things rushing at the screen. Sometimes it felt like it was going to do that, and then it kind of takes you off guard in the way that the scare was actually delivered. And so much more effective, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I jumped a couple of times, but I do jump at everything. I think it's the first time you do see one of the ghosts because you sort of don't expect it. You see people affected by the hand and you don't see anything. Yeah. And I didn't expect to see anything. And I mean, you don't see too much in the film. You don't see the spirits that much. It is more based on their reaction and the things they think they're seeing or are seeing, or it's sort of that sort of ambiguity. Whereas the first time you see a ghost from Mia's perspective, it really shocked me, and it's only for like a split second, if that. You don't really get enough time to really get in all the details of what she's seen, which must be exactly how she reacts as well, because she closes her eyes pretty soon afterwards as well.
I mean, that's pretty much what you would
really
do, isn't
effective.
It? But yeah, I mean, in terms of jump scares, I mean, they were like less traditional jump scares, I guess. I mean, I definitely jumped. Like, there were 2 or 3 times where I jumped or was kind of like fighting with myself to like look away or not, or keep watching. But yeah, incredibly effective.
I think it's really well done though, because your reaction to that, the thing that makes you jump is a sudden visual that is unpleasant or takes you aback. It's not because fundamentally we've just done a loud noise after a quiet bit. I think that's very skillfully done. Australian cinema's turning out some good horror. I rate, like, doesn't matter where a film comes from, good and bad things can come from anywhere, but I do find like the French, the Australians have been having a pretty good hit rate with me recently. Like the films that I'm picking up that come from those countries, and they're getting picked up in for international screenings that they're reaching us over here. I'm finding I'm really engaging with and enjoying. So yeah, it's always a big watch. I didn't actually know this was Australian going in until I heard people talking, and I think that's a nice.
Till I saw the kangaroo, and then I was like, hang on a minute.
Oh, hang on a second. No, until I heard people talking, like then it becomes apparently clear because I was talking about this with someone at work today. Americans don't say oi, whereas it's one of the first things when the brother goes into the party that he goes like oi, and it's like, yeah, it's funny they don't say that. But for me, an interesting thing to think about in terms of like cross culturally as well. Like I think watching a film like this, it resonates certainly with me. I'd be really interested to get the take of what it is like, what Australian audiences have thought of it, where it is more familiar to their lives, or American audiences. For me, Australian cinema and seeing things like Australia on screen, it has more familiarity. I think culturally they're probably more similar to us than we are to the US. We have shared languages and so on, but there's a lot of crossover in our culture. So there's a big familiarity to me as a British person watching an Australian film, but yet it is still, the differences in there, in climate, in some choices of slang words, and just you don't have that familiarity. Ben, I know you've spoken about watching films that are set in Bristol or series set in Bristol. And like, that's not how it works. That's not what the city's like, and things like that. Like,
hang on a minute, walk around the corner, and then you end up somewhere 40 minutes away. Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, look, you do have that degree of separation, which it works, and we'll conjure it follows again. It follows does it very well in making it ambiguous as to what the time period is, because you have fashion and cars from the 70s, but then mobile phones, but not contemporary mobile phones. In this one, there is, because of the distance, certainly for us as a UK audience, there's familiarity, but there's also difference, which I think leans in, certainly for me, to some of the unease it can create. I consume a lot of Australian media, so I find it very comforting to watch. Though it was great. I had a lot of fun with it.
And a lot of really good performances as well, right?
Yeah, performances are really solid. I know we say it anyway, and when we go through these films, we will inevitably we are going to go blow by blow on the plot, and we will be doing spoilers, especially because it's new, especially because I think people should very much go and see it. Normally I'd never tell you to pause and get me out of your ears for a minute, people listening, but if you haven't watched this yet, one of those rare occasions where I will actually say pause, we'll be here when you unpause it, go see it, go see this first before we go blow by blow. Only if you are completely unspoilable, or maybe if you're a little bit scared, but knowing what's going to happen will mean you can go and enjoy it.
Bloody
and
wimp.
It isn't too intense. It's all right. It's room for all sorts.
But yeah,
maybe if you're experiencing these vicariously through us, then use this to take the edge off, and then go and see it, because I would recommend anyone go and see this.
I think definitely go and see it. It's probably my favorite original horror movie in possibly a couple of years. Maybe, I mean, I might need to remind myself of everything I've loved over the last few years, but maybe one of the most impactful original horror movies since It Follows.
Yeah.
And definitely going to be, someone goes, oh, horror movies, recommend something. What shall I watch? And you recommend some things, and then this is going to be right at the top of the list, I think. But yeah, performances. Sophie Wilde's great as Mia. I don't think I've seen her in anything before. But a very interesting character, a very complex character. And you kind of find out more about her as time goes on, and not necessarily a character that is, what word am I thinking of? Where like a protagonist who you kind of are constantly rooting for. You kind of see this evil like eating away at her and seeing her change, and you can kind of predict what she's going to do next, and you're kind of like witnessing all of these changes in her personality along the way. But yeah, all the supporting cast were good as well. Obviously, Joe Bird in particular as Riley was great. Miranda Otto, who obviously, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you recognize as she stabbed what's his face in the face. What's his face?
Got the Witch King right in the goal.
Got the Witch King right in the face. I am no man. Stabbed in the face.
It's like, shit, I've been loopholed. Bastard.
Jesus. So obviously great to see her. She was awesome. But I think, all the supporting cast are great. Even like really bit part players. I felt like they really fit well into this world that had been crafted of like teenagers and sort of sneaking out of houses, going to parties and stuff. but also I think a great cold open as well.
Yeah, it's phenomenal cold open. I guess we'll go into that right now because it was one of the first bits. This is where, in this cold open, I think I mentioned before we started recording, I had some obnoxious people in my cinema that only started talking as the film began, having been really quiet for all the adverts.
That's when you're supposed to be quiet for the adverts and the trailers, and when the film starts, then you can talk. Yeah. That's the rules.
Immediately, like, we've all lost some degree of social skills and control after a couple of years of lockdown. I was like, oh, maybe they just need a bash in the head, But as soon as we got into this cold open, as soon as things happened at the end of this, they were stunned into quiet. But yeah, we begin.
I think this film demands your attention, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's one of those films. Like, there are plenty of modern horror films where you're like, it's kind of like a theme park, like a fairground ride, where you're like enjoying the scares, and maybe in the quieter moments you're kind of talking to your friends about the moments you were just scared of. Oh god, did I get you? Yeah, shit myself. Whereas this film, it just demands your attention from start to finish.
Yeah. So it's very apparent very quickly you're in Australia. So you see, it's almost like it's not full Steadicam, is it? It's almost like a little bit chaotic. We're following this guy as he goes into like a really raucous teenage house party. And he's like, "Oi, where's?" And he's calling after someone. It becomes evident that he's there to find someone who's at this party. Duckett, where's Duckett? They go, "Oh, he's here. He's there. He's everywhere." And then he finds him locked in a room in the house. And the mom of the family is in, saying, "Oh, he's in there." And then the kid whose house it is there trying to get him to come out, and the brother puts the shoulder to the door. It's like a really good. I didn't detect any cuts. It kind of follows him through the house. It's fairly well.
Yeah, it felt like a sort of single shot. Yeah,
and then he's puts a shoulder to the door, properly like dents it and breaks it before the lock goes and gets his brother out, and then. Typical. We see we're in the modern era because as soon as he's getting out, he's like disturbed, shirtless, looking kind of gaunt.
He's like, is he like covered in scratches? Is that right?
Yeah, he's like
scratches on his body,
covered in like injuries, isn't he? He's got like some welts and bruises and scratches,
and he's sort of like talking to himself as well.
Yeah, he's muttering along as they come along, and of course it's a modern film, so as he does this out, everyone's got their.
Oh, I don't know about this.
Everyone's got their phones out.
It's a bit out of order, isn't it? Like, just because he's wasted, get your phone out.
Out of order, but completely legit. You see it all the time, right? Like whether it's a concert or a car crash, every idiot's got their phone out the second they're never comes out, lads. Unless you're actually getting it for proof, it's never going to be the same. Just watch.
Just watch and enjoy. Record this video of fireworks. Everyone enjoys that.
While he's telling people to put their phones away and like kicking off, he's doing some more always. Oh, he can't. Don't do that. And then he, out of nowhere, like as an audience, we're blindsided, as characters are blindsided. His brother grabs a knife from the side, the one that we saw the mom like chopping salad with a minute ago. Stabs his brother, goes outside, and then does he stab himself in the eye?
I think
he stabs himself in the head.
Is it just in the head? Yeah. I kind of thought at this moment, well, that they're both dead. I didn't think for a second that one or both of them would have survived that, because it seemed like stabbed. So it was Cole was the brother. It seemed like he got stabbed right through the chest, right?
I guess he must have got him in the shoulder or something, because spoilers, he comes back a bit later. But yeah, for as far as we know at this point, that guy who has been shown to be, physically quite a capable character, we've just seen him like march into a party full of people that weren't particularly helpful to him. He's shouldered a door open, so it's someone who's physically capable, and as far as we know as an audience, is main character at this point. Dispatched and is out of scene. If he hadn't returned later, he could have just been dead.
Yeah.
And then the guy like leans back, and then it's another one of those disturbing things because it's not particularly a natural movement, right? It's not like you might see someone plunge a knife into their heart or slash their wrists if they were self-harming or something disturbing like that. But pretty much it is almost like his hand is being guided or moved by someone else. It is quite unnatural in the movement, very, very quick, but gets himself in the head or face,
right in the head. Yeah,
with the knife.
And then pretty quickly we're introduced to the other characters. So the main character, Mia, 17-year-old Mia, she's struggling with the second anniversary of her mother Ria's suicide, but this isn't necessarily apparent at this moment, isn't it? One thing I think that's represented really well here in terms of like grief is that she's got like a really emotionally distant relationship with her dad. And you know, we've probably seen this done not so well in movies in the past, where, you know, they've lost a family member and maybe they're kind of just getting on with the life as usual, or maybe like a dad's like, come on, we've got to live our best life for the person who's missing. But this is kind of seemed more realistic. Like, this is probably what would happen. Two people dealing with grief in two very different ways, and that in itself is making them feel emotionally distant because there's nothing bringing them together because they're coping. Obviously, Mia's got a life outside. It seems like her dad is very sort of alone, very like isolated.
Very isolated. He sort of tries to communicate with his daughter.
He's always trying to ring her, and she's just like,
yeah,
I mean,
you see several times.
That kind of is what kids do, though, isn't it? How old are you? How old are your kids, Becky?
Mine are 2 and 8 months, so they're still very little.
Oh, right, okay, they are little. Well, my daughter's 13, so she's definitely leaving me on red. And she does answer the phone. If I ring her, she answers the phone. She just doesn't respond to messages. That's kind of it. Yeah. So I kind of, oh yeah, I understand that. I get that. But then 17-year-old Mia, like, it's probably gonna be much more like that. But she's kind of seeking solace in what you would kind of think of as like a second family.
Yeah, I think she drives into they have a separate situation. We don't see a dad in the other family that with her friend's family. But I think having the comfort of having a mom, having a younger brother to take care of, she leans into that. Whereas she is visually, and, you know, we're told that she's kind of phases her dad out. So you already mentioned, you see quite often he'll phone and she'll hang up.
Yeah.
There's
really a bit when she's
like opening bit when she's washing her hands.
Yeah, that's it.
And the dad never comes into focus.
Yeah,
so,
that was good.
You'd almost be forgiven for
loads
thinking,
of stuff like,
is the dad a ghost or imaginary? But he isn't. He's just not the focus of her life. So he comes in and it's really nice and innocuous. It doesn't have to put too much of a pin in it or be too on the nose by going, why won't you just talk to me? It isn't like that at all. It is, she sneezes while she's washing the dishes, and she goes, are you getting a cold? And she's like, oh no, I'm fine. And then it's like, how was it today? And he was like, the memorial service that she was, just like, it was fine. And then we're very quickly seeing that she's not just incapable of relationships, and she's not just just really shut off from everyone, because then her phone goes and she immediately picks it up and is like, hey, okay, I'm on my way, I'm coming now. Really, really nicely done.
There's lots of really good things like in terms of the cinematography, just these little subtle visual cues that kind of make us understand a little bit about the relationship between two characters, or perhaps like a little hint towards something that's happened before or something that's going to happen next. It's just really good. I think it's just, in terms of visual storytelling, it is great, because how many times, no, I'm not just talking horror, I mean just like some other modern films, you're spoon-fed so much in terms of visuals, in terms of dialogue. You're really just told within like a couple of minutes, this is the relationship between these two people, and it's not really going to stray from that ever. When we know that that's not how life is. Like, human relationships are so much more complex than that. Often it's what's not said that is probably more important than what is said. So I was already in these first couple of scenes, I was like, okay, I like where this is going. I feel at ease already. But yeah.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm sort of of the same sort of mindset. I don't like it when it films like you go in, it could have been like, oh, how was the 2-year anniversary of your mom who died by suicide? Oh, it was great, father. I'm now going to see my best friend and her brother. I'm really not a fan.
Yeah, 100%.
Plunges the audience in as if you just met these people. Like, if you just met her on the street, her life is continuing when you're not there.
Yeah.
So it assumes that you've just got to catch up as she goes on. I like that, because it adds to the realism of the story.
And it should respect his audience to be able to do that. Like films should. They should be able, because even a couple of times, there was a couple of times I forgot about the dad, and I was a bit like, so what's the situation here? I was almost like, is this her family? And then because it was so believable, it felt so real and I went, oh no, of course she's got a dad. I forgot about that. So yeah, just making up your own mind and sort of understanding the levels of these relationships is really well done. But I mean, the performances were good to make that feel real as well. All very different characters as well. So obviously you've got Mia, who's obviously dealing with grief, but she's pretty outgoing. When she goes to pick up Riley, they're having a bit of a sing-song in the car to see her.
Grade A car singing, right? Because this is where we go now. So we meet Riley, who we quickly learn is her best friend's brother.
And his mate.
Yeah, and his mate,
But even this, right? Even this, sorry, I don't mean to like gush too much, but
please.
even this, a very small couple of lines of dialogue between these two, and I'm like, I know so much about their friendship just from this.
Riley's one guy kind of sensible and less bold. The other guy's like, he's sparking up a couple of durries, and he wants to be the
Well, he says something like someone on Snapchat looks elvish, and he goes, looks what? And he goes, elvish, like elves, like the fantasy character. He's like, shut up.
Yeah, he looks quite elven. Yeah.
He looks like Elvis. He looks nothing like Elvis.
The guy's sparking up those darts, and he's like, "Do you reckon they give you cancer immediately?" So he has a friend who wants to be like more grown up and tries to be like the big I am and the cool kid, but they very quickly, like, again, in other films, in lesser films, I think you would need to say, but we're only 13 years old. We don't have to do that. You can tell from the things they're talking about and the things they're experimenting with, and then just those little interactions between the characters. Because then his friend has a cigarette lit, and that's when Mia pulls up and she goes like, "You smoking now?" She goes, "Ah, no." She goes, "All right, enjoy your cancer, mate. See you in a while." Like, they have that relationship, and that's when we get your lovely bit of car singing here. Great to see the actors just like going for it and not like doing a performance, but just the direction on it obviously was just like, right, go mad and like sing this song as if you're having a sing song in the car. Really naturally done, really having a lovely time until they see a horrible injured kangaroo in the road.
Oh God. I mean, what was going on here? Some sort of animatronic?
It must have been.
It was absolutely horrible. But that's where I thought something was going to happen, because we know that kangaroos can be quite dangerous. I was convinced something was going to happen there. After the cold open and being shocked by that, I thought, what's going to happen now? And then obviously nothing does.
Yeah. But what I kind of liked here is obviously the visual of the kangaroo. We get to revisit a little bit later, but we also, like, Mia's given the choice to put someone or something out of their misery by running it over, essentially. So the kangaroo's been hit by a car. It's making some terrible noises, like horrible noises, and Riley's like, just put it out of his misery, and you think she's gonna run it over
with a car,
but then she can't, and she doesn't. And I like how that is kind of an interesting thematic idea to sort of revisit it again later. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those films where you're like, I need to like think more about what this visual kind of meant, and perhaps it doesn't mean one thing or another. It's kind of up to me to understand it how best I want to. But yeah, I was really into it. And yeah, if you wonder where the film was made, it's definitely Australia, because kangaroos just milling about, getting hit by cars.
Yeah, they've only got wallabies in Stoke-on-Trent, so couldn't be here.
It couldn't be Stoke-on-Trent. And when they get home, we kind of understand the dynamic of the family a little bit more. Jade is like, she's always on her bloody phone, but she's obviously more interested in, she's got like a love interest, Daniel, who obviously Mia's had a bit of a history with, but like a history when they were really young kids, right? They had a bit of they even make fun of it. They all say, oh,
you held hands for 10 minutes once.
Yeah. And then obviously the mum, who is Sue, she like out working nights. Is that right? Is that where she is? Like when the parties happen?
She's a single parent. Not sure if she's working or if she occasionally goes, out when they have babysitting. She has like a life. I'm not sure it establishes where she is, but she gets home for the day.
Yeah, I thought she was maybe working somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, she gets back from work or wherever she's been out, and they're close. She gives Mia a hug, sees how she is, and she does open up to Sue, whereas she kind of blocked her own dad out.
Oh yeah. But
And
again,
she's chatting with Riley. They're close as well, and then they're off to a party.
That's super realistic. I'm going to keep saying it, but still super realistic. Sometimes, yeah, much easier to open up to somebody who's perhaps a bit of an outsider in certain situations, family situations. Can't speak to your dad or your mum or someone, but you can speak to a friend's mum. Speak to Big Sue. She'll sort you out. But yeah, she seems. I mean, she's very playful with it and almost like winding him up in a way. But she at least she seems to understand what growing up is all about. And it's like, were you sneaking out? Are you? No, why?
Yeah, well, it's really good to have like a dynamic mom character as well. Like when she goes, "Oh, you going to bed? Oh yeah, you're sneaking out. Yeah. Why else would you ask where I was going to bed?" Or like when she gets in, she's like, "Ready, get your shit off the table." Like it's
oh yeah,
it's not just you can be with films that are focused on children or teen characters, and where the parents aren't going to have a great deal of agency in what's going on. So often the parents become just nothing characters. They may as well be the adults in Charlie Brown, where you just see them off screen and you hear as their voice. But like with this one, it's proper. Like Sue is a major character in this. Her reaction to things and her involvement in things when people get injured or are in danger, while she doesn't engage in any of the supernatural goings on in it, because it's very easy that you engage adults in this and then they become the focus of the story. So you want those younger adolescent characters to lead the thing, but she is still a part of it and she is still a major player in the overall story, which is nice.
Definitely. Yeah. It's really nice to see a mom character in the film as well, not presented as just a nag or the serious parent, which is what we so often see in horror films, but in wider media as well, as the mom being the stricter parent and the dad less so. It's nice to see a mom that can have fun with the kids, that a kids can be more open with. I mean, they do lie about sneaking out, but she does sort of give that vibe that they can speak to her. Obviously, like you say, Mia does speak to her, whereas with her dad, she doesn't. And it's interesting to see that sort of stereotype quashed within the film at the start.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So where they're sneaking out to a party hosted by Haley and Joss, and apparently the main attraction is this mysterious severed embalmed hand, and they're seeing it all over Snapchat. Kids do still use Snapchat. I was like, anyone using Snapchat these days? They do. As I said, 13-year-old daughter, she's all over it with Snapchat. So it shows I'm just an old stick in the mud.
So old Ben with your TikToks, all right, Granddad.
Sorry, Granddad. So there's loads of videos of people like seemingly possessed, but I think our characters are a bit like, it's bullshit. We don't really believe this is what it is. Everyone's faking it or to get attention, but we're still curious about what it could be. So yeah, they go to this party, and initially, like, it's a bit awkward.
Haley's not a fan that Mia's been brought along, is she? She's like,
oh yeah, says, yeah, you know how much she gets on my nerves, something like that, doesn't she?
It's fucking right on my whip. Buzz Killington over there.
Or Buzz Killington.
Really, really interested. A line she says in that, speaking about like how she's annoying now, sort of as if she's saying she's annoying since the mom's died. And it's interesting how it's represented in the film that Mia has changed since her mom died and how she's a different person. I think it's interesting that we sort of get little glimpses and little things people say about what she was like before, but then obviously we don't see that. We only see her post death, going through her grief.
No, most definitely. It's good. It's really good. All the characters are really well rounded and fleshed out nicely without needing to have 100 lines of dialogue to explain who they are, where they're from, what they think about A, B, and C.
We don't need to like take a little aside to be like, here's Haley's story, here's Mia's story. We don't have to do those ones. Like Joss as a character is very like minimally touched on what his background is. Like in fact, there's a bit when they ask where he got the hand from. Is like, what the fuck do you want to know? Like a list of receipts of where it's come from. I just
transactional receipts. Yeah, I just got it from someone who got it from someone else, and that's kind of it.
I've just got it. Like you don't need to worry about that. Take note, Alien franchise.
So they say it's the hand of like a psychic. Is that right?
Yeah, a hand of a psychic who could contact the dead. So then someone along the line basically said, when I just chop your hands off. And again, lovely bit of smart, not on the nose, the game is on award kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, where's the second hand? Just a throwaway line saying, oh, the other one's probably somewhere else.
Yeah. And they also say, what's with the, like, why is it? Because it's kind of got like ceramic porcelain. Yeah. So like, I don't know, if you smash it open, it's probably like an old embalmed mummified hand.
It's been an embalmed hand, and then the porcelain's been put over it to for a visual effect, to preserve it effectively, an extra bit of preservation.
And it never really mentions what all the sort of writing on the hand is either, does it? Does it ever mention
Lovely bit of graffiti that says like, chat to us, will you? Give us a chat. Have a look over
maybe
here.
Like people who've used it have like signed it, gone, yeah, that was good.
In several different scripts and languages as well, right? So there's English words, there's like what looks like maybe some Thai script or some Asian characters in there. So it's all different languages that are written over it.
So yeah, after a little bit of awkwardness, that's when Daniel turns up, and what we understand from Daniel is that he's good Christian fella. And I think Sue does say, "Oh yeah, but he's still got a dick," but still, like, kind of makes out that he's a nice guy, and he is in a genuine sort of like he's got a love interest in, what's her name?
Jade. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Jade. Yeah, he's genuinely interested in her. It's not anything nefarious or anything like that. But obviously, him and Mia have still got a bit of a connection from when they used to know each other. But yeah, fairly quickly, the hand comes out, and they sort of explain how it works. And Riley's there at this point as well, isn't he?
Yeah, Riley basically, as they were sneaking out, went like, well, you're sneaking out, I'm coming. And this plays in as well. Mia is quite soft with Riley, and she's nice to him. She likes to include him. And whereas Jade, typical older sister's like, oh, no, you're not coming. Mia's like, I told him he could come. He's fine. Like, it's all right. He's allowed to come. He's all right. She actually genuinely likes him. Again, it's looking for those family connections. How did you both feel about this with Mia volunteering? Do you think it's because of this atmosphere and she's kind of determined not to be like a suck and for people to like not like her so much as they used to? Do you think she's done it as a way to try and win some favor with the group again, or is it like possibly a curiosity and speaking? Like,
it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? It's a curiosity of like connecting, because she probably got some curiosity since her mum died of like what is beyond. I think she just felt a bit awkward initially, didn't she? And kind of wanted to be involved a bit more. She felt like a bit excluded, a bit of an outsider. So she was kind of like involving herself immediately. So she's kind of like, I don't think it's because she wants to be center of attention, but I think she just wanted in some way. That's what I got from that anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was the sort of like the peer pressure of the party. We see her in it sort of being awkward, sort of gravitating around Jade and not really speaking to anyone else. I mean, Hayley doesn't exactly make her feel included or act like she's included.
Yeah, because she just...
I thought I sort of got the
getting on with her. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I sort of got the impression that maybe beforehand they were closer and she was more the life and soul of the party. And then now it's obviously very different. Her life's dramatically changed. It sort of felt to me a little bit like she was trying to get back to old Mia, like pre-Greek Mia, and throwing herself out there. But then also, like you say, the curiosity of the hand. She seems to be the one that is more sort of interested in the videos, and maybe they are real, as opposed to like Jade and Daniel, who don't really seem to believe it at all.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, really interesting. I find everything, all the dynamics of the characters really, really interested. So yeah, they pretty much explain how it works is put the hand down on the table, you light a candle to like open the connection, open the door, you blow the candle out to close the door. You essentially hold the hand, say, talk to me, which allows you to meet the spirit. And then you say, I let you in. And then you get fully possessed by the spirit. But 90 seconds seems to be the limit for this. I don't know whether, is it just information that they've been given?
Yeah, I think
it's like witnessed anything firsthand.
This is some lovely work. And this is why, as a concept, this is really strong. This is the Gremlins rules. This is your 1-2 Freddy's coming for you. These little bits of like just lore that you don't need written down anywhere, but just the way they put it, like 90 seconds is the limit. And even Hayley used quite a he doesn't strike you as being a very responsible character, doesn't strike you as being particularly interested in rules, but is straight away, and Joss ties Mia to a chair. It's like, trust me, you're going to want to be tied down.
Yeah.
And then they say, you've got to do it 90 seconds. Oh, what's wrong? Why isn't it 90 seconds? And they quickly just hit these rules. It's like, if it's more than 90 seconds, they're going to want to stay. So they want to stay if you have more than 90 seconds. And by the way, if you die while they're in you, then they've got you forever.
Bloody hell.
Two things that come up in these early points, and then
I think initially I'd be like, what's good about this?
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
Yeah, there does seem to be no appeal to it whatsoever, other than sort of to get a social media video. And that I think when they have the first person in the chair, you see everyone gets their phones up, just like in the first scene.
I think if I'd just be like, I need to watch it happen with someone else first. Just so
I'll
at
go
least
second. I'll go second. And chop me up at 40 seconds if you don't mind.
So initially, when she's very scared, very unsure, but when she touches the hand and says, "Talk to me," she does see a spirit, but she immediately lets go of the hand, and it's like a old man first, isn't it?
Yeah.
And she obviously just, because it just appears directly in front of you, it does feel like you're supposed to be holding her hand, right?
Yeah, and like later on, you do see some scenes where you see them talking to a ghost, and the porcelain hand isn't in play. It is them holding the little girl later on. She's just holding her hand. So as the mechanism of the film works, you are holding the hand of the person that you are speaking to. So again, think of the fear side of things. In a first person view, you look up and all of a sudden you're not holding a porcelain hand, you're holding the hand of visibly a corpse. They're Beetlejuice dead people, right? Whereby you look like the thing how you died. So if you got
and some of them, like,
you're all bloated and horrible.
And some of them get like gradually worse as well. Like some of them are more repeat. With the more we see of them, the worse they seem to get. So yeah, she gets scared in this initial moment, lets go of the hand, but when they convince her to finally do it, the body she sees is like of a woman who's like, she looks all green and bloated, like she's drowned,
like a drowned person,
possibly,
right? That's gonna have swelled up.
Yeah. And for this being the first one and the first time Mia's done it, could have gone any worse? Could it? Well, not worse, but you know what I mean. It's like, so what did she do initially? Initially, she's like just looking around. She sort of focuses on Riley and kind of like
her eyes go all black, which is great. Like, yeah. She says that someone's here. And she implies that they can see other spirits, and her voice changes. She gets like a gruffer, like a country accent. I don't know Australian states well enough to say what the accent she gets, but it's not her own accent. But she's like, "Oh, he likes you, boy. Wash out, he'll split you." And it's like, oh, poor. And Riley is visibly upset by it, right? He's crying.
He's like looking around, like as if to say, "Who are you talking to?"
And the door seems like creaks open as well, right? So
yeah, everyone loves it. This is the thing; everyone's entertained by it rather than scared. Which I guess it would be like that when you're in a group of people. If you're on your own, obviously horrific. But in a group of people, it must be like super entertaining.
She does a horrifying laugh.
Very scary laugh. But yeah, in terms of the eyes being like black or red, and obviously their faces all goes a bit discolored and grey as well. So it kind of like you can say as much as you want, oh, they're faking it, but you can't really fake that, can you?
No, you can't really like having like almost like a black bile running through your veins, where anyone has like close veins to the skin, you can see it coursing through them, sort of.
And it seems like the spirit also knows, like whoever it possesses, it seems to understand them and have their memories, essentially, doesn't it?
It has their secrets and whatever. We get some comments about it later on. It knows all about them. They have a little bit of a struggle. Like they struggle to get that. She has a real tight grip on the hand, and it takes both Joss and Haley to pull it away from her.
But it goes over the 90-second deadline as well.
We went ever so slightly over. You're right. And they're like, yeah, it's fine.
Did you think at this moment, Becky? Did you think that's fine? 90-second going over the 90-second deadline. I bet that won't mean anything.
Oh no, absolutely not. Although I did think, on rewatching it again, maybe it didn't affect her then because she'd been touched by death. I mean, like through her mom dying. We don't know of any of the others if they have. We do know through Mia she does, like she has. And she does seem to be the least affected compared to like later, obviously, when Riley goes through it and goes over the deadline. He's just immediately.
I know we will get to that, but I've got so many thoughts about what that could have been, because again, I don't think it's straight up obvious what happened, what kind of spirit has got hold of him, or how it's related to Mia in any way, whether it is just an evil spirit that's taking advantage and sort of manipulating people around it. That's kind of what I thought, but again, it feels very open to interpretation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd sort of got the impression that if Mia had been taken over in the earlier one when she'd messed with the hand, that it was sort of her mind playing tricks on her, that actually it was nothing to do with her mom whatsoever, and it was whatever was inside her making her think of her mom, and sort of the grief taking over her denial about what had happened, because obviously at this point she doesn't know like the ins and outs of what had happened. Her dad hasn't sat her down and spoken to her about the truth behind her mom's death.
But I definitely don't think at any point it was actually her mum, was it?
I don't think so, personally.
No.
Yeah, unless, I mean, I don't think... unless, you know, when you're a ghost and you're there for long enough, you go nasty. Who knows? Like, it's, again, apparently the creators, the concept writer and the writer-directors of this have said they have more Bible and backstory and content that they didn't touch on in this one. So they do have the capacity to do more. I imagine if they do more, these are things that we could explore further. Like, is it a case of, regardless on how you are as a person when you get there, is it only that you end up in this kind of limbo if you have died violently in an accident or through suicide or something like that? Or is it that anyone could be there? Or is it that, you know, you start off as yourself, but we see a bit later on how kind of distorted and how time flows? Is that something that affects who you are? Are the ghosts aware of each other, and do they work collectively? What, like, these are things we perhaps learn, we perhaps won't. But my take on this one was they did end the session, so they did take the hand off her and blow the candle out to close the door on this one. So I don't think there's a ghost that's possessed her right now, but I think I feel like also over that time has like maybe drawn their attention to her, and it's like, oh, okay, we can be fixated upon this person. This is someone. Yeah,
that's probably likely. The door had been open.
Police tracing a call, right? So it's like if you've got them on that line for long enough, you know where they are, and you can see them a little bit more, perhaps.
Yeah, and again, any other film could have possibly just had it all take place in the same house, in the same sort of party, and it could have just been one after another, just getting progressively worse. But again, this film knows how to really take its time, and it stops the session. Well, we don't even see anyone say, right, that's enough. We're just back home. Mia's staying over again. Riley's obviously a bit freaked out, a bit terrified, as you would be, and he wants to sleep. Well, he wants to sleep with Jade first, but she's got no interest. The
calls him a suck and sends him off to bed. It's like, oh, get out of here, you suck. But he closed the door. No one closes Jade's door.
No one closes Jade's door. And Cookie as well, knocking about, the dog. Has a very important role to play soon. And yeah, essentially it's like the whole plan now is just to get to do it again as soon as possible and get other people to do it.
Is it her boyfriend? So Daniel wants to do it. They go and ask Haley outside school if they can do it again. Riley has another nice moment with Mia that he goes, and when his sister throws him out and won't let him come and bunk in with her, he goes and shares the spare room with Mia, and I think she, at that point, and it's done in a nice way, I think it's brought up very well. It doesn't feel clunky. She explains a little bit about the nightmares she has and some fears she has about her mom and the background there, you know, and we get to see some of the violence behind it. I think this is where she explains that, yeah, my mom didn't want to kill herself. She took too many sleeping pills by accident, and she had been trying to get to the door and had been stuck in there. My dad was sleeping on the sofa, and, you know, he by the time he broke the door down, he went in the morning, she didn't answer, he broke the door down, and she'd injured her hand trying to get out because she hadn't been able to go. She tried to get help.
There was paint underneath her fingernails, and obviously, again, a couple of the things she describes here that again come into play. the fact that her mum's body was like against the door and they couldn't open the door because she like slumped there, and also the fact that Mia describes having a dream that she looks in the mirror and she's got no reflection.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Oh, you've got It Follows t-shirt on as well, Becky. I didn't even realize that before.
Very on brand.
Firm favorite of mine. I can definitely see the parallels between the two films as well. There's a lot in common with the two.
Yeah, she's got just a similar sort of like atmosphere, similar sort of vibe, and feeling like really uneasy about an evil that you don't really understand, I guess. Like some films try to really establish an evil and what it wants and how to essentially get rid of it. But with this film, and again with It Follows, it's almost like the rules kind of just are played out and they change, and we learn one thing and then that changes this, and that's almost what I felt like this film did as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got that sort of urban legend feel, I feel like, you know, when you're a child and you hear about, I don't know, the Grey Lady or the Boogeyman or Candyman or something like that. That's what this felt like to me very much. Like, oh, these are the rules and you've just got to do it because otherwise the ghosts are going to come and get you. There's no rhyme, there's no reason necessarily, there's no backstory to it. You just believe it because of that lingering fear that maybe it will happen, which I think is compounded by the fact that it is a very young cast as well. And then a lot of the people that will be going to see it have lived through that and probably know stories from their childhood that are very, very similar.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, so sort of after that night, the next time is like there's a party at Jade's house. Obviously, the mum, Sue, is using every trick in the book to try and get someone to admit to the fact that there's a party going on. Oh, that's right. It told me already. What time is everyone getting here? No. I don't know in a party. I never heard of it. All very well to do.
It's really good.
But yeah, this time it's Haley and Joss. They bring the hand to Jade's house, and here is where they're obviously going to let the others kind of have a go. And I think it's a great scene, but a great like sort of montage as well of like just how many times they do it without any repercussions. So it almost like brings your guard down a bit, doesn't it? It's like, okay, right. So if they're doing this over and over and over and over again, they must understand it a little bit, and perhaps nothing bad is going to happen.
They're all having a go at being possessed. I mean, we get a slightly embarrassing scene first.
Slightly embarrassing? I don't know about you, Andy. I don't know if slightly embarrassing covers it. I don't know if anything this embarrassing has ever happened to me.
He gets over it pretty quick.
He does get over it pretty quickly, but I would be like, delete that video immediately.
You'd say no video. I think that's like the say, don't know. They say, right, no video if we're going to carry on.
Yeah. No video, please. That's fair enough.
Yeah, so
again.
Couldn't show your face anywhere, I don't think.
Old Daniel has a go. We definitely need to go through this. So Daniel has a go, and this is where I guess there is some incidental bits of interest in story, because we do get the idea that the ghosts can at least get some idea of what's going on with the characters, and it's like Daniel has to go first. He gets possessed, and the ghost Eversamine has a look at Jade and goes, you make him soft. It doesn't like you don't do anything for him. Now, whether that is meant to be a pointed comment that there is still something between him and Mia, or is it a sexuality thing? And is it?
Or it could have been the ghost just on a wind up.
Yeah, just ghosts being.
Because I think Haley says this ghost is a cunt, right?
Yeah. Say, your ghost is a proper cunt. Yeah.
And then it just devolves into, I mean, I can't imagine how uncomfortable it must have been being in the room with this, because I felt just watching it on screen, I was very uncomfortable. Heavy breathing, sexually suggestive noises.
Yeah, doing suggestive
moaning,
noises.
Licking at the lips.
Having a go at Mazinoff. And...
Wait, having a go at Mazinoff and then falling down and just like humping the ground, is that right?
Humping the ground, yeah.
Is this what we're trying to think? So obviously these spirits, when they come into your body, they're almost like they feel human again, I guess. And obviously a spirit had come into his body that was very sexual.
This particular one is like, holy shit, I've got 90 seconds to try.
I've got 90 seconds to do everything I've ever bloody wanted. Yeah. Hump the floor and snog the dog.
It's like, I'm a ghost and I make this person all rancid when I possess them, so I'm not going to get a kiss from anyone else at this point.
Just the dog. So yeah, this is pretty horrible, because the way like Cookie the dog obviously has been sat quite nicely watching everything unfold to this point, but just walks over and starts licking licking Daniel's face, and he. How do they film this? That's what I just keep thinking. I mean, there's no other way of filming it, is
I'm
there?
guessing they just that the guy just had to let the dog lick his face.
Oh, but like proper snogging the dog, and like as I said before, that moment where he like grabs the dog's back and like pulls him in, it's just like it's so wrong. It's so wrong. And obviously
And we
because
get
they
the impression
filmed it
that
as well.
Daniel or anyone, they know what's happened when they were possessed, right? Because I
Yeah,
think
because it
Mia
says like
says
you're
it's like
you're
a
in the passenger seat. Yeah. It's not like you go completely blank. It's like you're a passenger. You can't do anything to control anything that's happening. But
So when he's come back of it, it's like, oh, no.
I've had an absolute mare. I'm never living this one down. And he does say to everyone, delete it, but no. Yeah, and
I've
then
already uploaded it, mate. It's too late.
yeah. I've already uploaded it. It's gone straight out to the cloud. And then what happens
Well,
next?
we have a little
Oh, it's just
montage
like
where
the
everyone having
big.
their goes, and then Riley wants to go. Mia kind of like Jade is straight away, no, you're too young. No, I'm responsible for you. It's not happening. And Jade hasn't had to go herself either. I think she has gone the other way on it, where she's like, I don't think this is a good idea. Seeing all of you get involved with this, and there's probably parallels and messages about peer pressure and seeing your friends do drugs at this point as well. It leans into the cigarette that you saw earlier
Yeah.
on. But Riley does want to go at this, and they kind of do some bargaining, and Mia's immediately convinced, like, oh, I'll tell you what, we'll just let him do 50 seconds. We'll just let him do half the
Just
time.
50 seconds. That'll be absolutely fine. And Jade leaves the room as well, didn't she? So she's obviously, I'm having no part of this. Daniel goes after her.
And then there's a few of them, and they do, basically, in the absence of Jade, Mia just makes a call and it's like, oh, okay, I'll allow it to happen. So she kind of takes
But
responsibility.
again, that
makes
montage that we've seen is taken our guard down. But we also, the characters' guards have obviously gone down as well. So you've been doing it so much over and over again, having such a good time with it, that it's almost got to the point where they're like, well, nothing's going to go wrong because we're in control. We're
And they're
fully
kind of,
in
oh, it's
control
one
of
more
it.
time because Haley and Joss have got another party at 11. They're like, oh, 50 one more go. One more go. They're about
One
to
more
pack
go.
up.
Oh yeah, they are literally about to pack up. They're literally like packing things away. He's like, please, I'm absolutely desperate to have a go.
Yeah, and he does have a good. Now when Riley is possessed? What does he say? Does he say in it? Oh no, of course this is the Mia's mom bit.
Yeah, so he just turns, and this is the thing, his voice sounds exactly like the mum, doesn't it? It's not like him. It's not like his voice, him saying something that she would say. It's literally her voice being channeled through him. So that is why Mia automatically recognizes it. And
she speaks to her and she calls her me, like, which is what her mom used to call her.
my mum used to call me that, a shortened version of my name. No one else would know to do that.
Especially as Australia, the country I would say of all the countries in the world most likely to call people by nicknames that are shortened versions of their names.
Yeah, even Mia, which is 3 letters.
You've got one of the few names that they might lengthen in Australia. Benno.
Oh yeah, I'll take that. Enjoy that. So yeah, initially Mia is obviously desperate to speak to her mum and so almost get like answers from her. What does she sort of say in this? I suppose she doesn't ask any questions about her death, but she's just like,
she says, like, I'm so sorry. I didn't do anything to hurt you on purpose. I don't want you to hate me or be ashamed. Which again gives us some ambiguity as to whether it is her mom and they do know things, or are they just things that she's getting that familiarity from what she wanted to hear because they can read your thoughts and know things about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've spoken about the performances so far, but Joe Bird in that role, it's such a fantastic performance in being, even though we haven't met Mia's mom, he becomes Mia's mom. It's so believable that he is a completely different person in that scene. I think it's 100%. So powerful.
Yeah.
Speaking of powerful performances, though, I properly in the cinema had like stress head round the back of my, like stress like hands around the back of my head, watching this one. Not like it's a scary time. It's not like a look away. I'm scared of a ghost in this, but it's like, Oh
do
my God,
something.
someone
It's just
do
like
something.
someone do something.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mia's insistent that they don't blow the candle out. So like, okay, 50 seconds is up, but she's like, no, I want to keep speaking to what I think is my mum. And in a way, like, I mean, you could look at anyone involved in the situation and think who's to blame. But obviously, Mia's going to feel pretty bad about it because she was like, no, 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 keep it going, keep it going. I want to speak to my mum. And then how does it change? Does she just?
I don't
He like
even
leans back.
I
He
don't
like
even
leans
think
back.
it passes the 90 seconds. You know, I like it feels like she's saying let's keep going, but it was 50, and they talk for a second longer. I don't think it hits like 91 seconds, and this happens. I think it takes it over the 90 by just this incredibly violent reaction. So you're right. He leans really far back and then just absolutely Hereditary style just
Oh
plants
yeah,
his head into this
Hereditary.
desk again and again and again, and then he falls over and is like bashing his head into things.
Tries
He
to rip his
crashed into
own
the window.
eyeball out of his
Oh, that
face.
was the bit. Yet you see, like, properly, we're not on a visual medium unless you're watching this on YouTube.
Man.
He really digs his fingers into the eyes, and he's trying to pluck his eye out of his head very, very successfully.
I mean,
might add.
even at this stage, I was like, okay, that. I mean, even when the mum was speaking to me, I was like, okay, it's not the mum. It's manipulating her somehow. It's a proper evil, horrible bastard spirit, and that is why it's just gone. Fuck it, I'm just gonna rip this boy to shreds, essentially, just to make a point. It didn't seem like there was any other point other than just to fuck with everybody.
With hindsight, I imagine what they might be doing, like everything that follows in this film, is trying to make sure this boy dies with the ghost still having possession of him. From a ghost point of view, they're not necessarily interested in playing the long game. I think they're doing what they can with him tied to a chair to try and kill him while this ghost is inside him. So he's bashing his head into the table. He throws himself into the window and the glass, and he is trying to pluck his own out, because I imagine that would be, with just your hand free, what's the most horrific injury you could do to yourself? I can't think of many very worse. I watch horror films as part of a weekly thing.
And I think it was more effective than the Hereditary head smash. I feel like with that one, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is horrific. But with this one, it's almost like maybe because he's younger and everyone's surrounding him, you think somebody stopped this from happening. The fact that he can keep doing it over and over again and nobody's been able to get the hand off of him, and obviously he goes flying across the room as well. I kind of thought, when the window smashed, I thought he's gonna stick his neck on that smashed window or something like that. And then who rushes in at this point?
Jade comes into the room, and it's just as he's found like the corner of the table, like the toddler's worst nightmare, sharp edges on a bit of furniture, and he's launched his head, and Jade basically runs it. And the same as us as an audience are going, somebody stop it, someone do something. And very quick thinking, Jade basically, as he is throwing his head towards this sharp corner, puts a hand in front of it, and she breaks her fingers get broken because he headbutts her hand rather than this sharp corner, before they finally are able to pull the hand off him. And he's obviously passed out unconscious because his head, as he does, he bashed his head several times. You've seen this split almost coming down his face, like partially it's damage, and I imagine damage to his skull and what have you, like fracturing it, but also like just the blood running down his face from these injuries.
I just thought dead without a shadow of a doubt. Did you think he was dead?
Oh yeah, I thought there's no way he's surviving that.
Yeah, I thought he's just dead. That's it. But the fact that he'd survived, and obviously another great scene of Mia just very slowly walking out of the room as carnage unfolds around her. You got Haley and Joss who are like, we've got to get our story straight, about what happened, why we were here, we've witnessed it. Obviously it's lucky in a way because they were filming this at this moment, so they've got video evidence of what happened. And again, that's an interesting way of sort of writing out the authorities in a way. Like, you could have easily, this could have happened, and the police, they would have been sort of kept, loads of stuff could have happened, but the fact they write out the fact that police aren't going to do anything because we got video evidence and clearly it's a self-harm situation. But yeah, this shot with Mia kind of in complete shock as to what's happened, and obviously blaming herself to a degree. You can tell
it's a character conflicted, right? Because she's just seen something terrible happen, but at the same time, she has just spoken to what she believes to be her
Yeah,
mom.
of course.
I think it's very much a character that sort of avoids that confrontation as well, as we saw with the kangaroo earlier. She very much doesn't want to confront these feelings, and it felt to me like even though she did want to speak to her mom, she doesn't want to deal with the emotional fallout that comes with it. And that's exactly the same with Riley as well. She doesn't want to deal with the emotional fallout of what's happened to him, and probably a sense of disbelief as well of what they'd seen. I mean, I know as just watching it as an audience, as the film, watching it, I could barely comprehend what was going on screen. It was so violent and so sudden.
Yeah.
And
It was
that's
again.
what we see this section, right? So we kind of get a loss of time in what that Mia goes to the bathroom and washes her hands of the blood that she's got on them while struggling to get the hand off him, and then the discussions that are happening. So you're hearing the others talk about what to do, and the others trying to call an ambulance and try and get help, and all these.
You hear a phone call, Jade calling her mum as well, and saying that Riley's hurt, and she's like, "What do you mean?" And he's just like he's in hospital.
And then before you know it, it's just a police officer coming back into Mia and saying, "Okay, come on through. Your dad's here to take you home."
But again, that police officer was probably out of focus as well, so it's almost like the way it represents everyone who's out of focus is just like we just see that like Mia's in this sort of like dreamlike state of shock, and everything else just isn't really computing at this stage. And obviously Mia. Wait, does the candle get blown out? It does get blown out, doesn't it? Or do we not see a candle?
They're not sure. They're not sure because this comes up later. They're not sure if the candle's been blown out, but we kind of So her dad takes her home. They have a brief confrontation where it says, "You've not been honest with me about something with mom," and that's and then basically him questioning her as to what's going on. "You're not telling me something." She basically throws that back at her dad and says, "You're not telling me about something that was true about mom." End of conversation. Walks away, and then she calls a cab or goes out because she can drive. So she goes to she takes a cab to the hospital.
I mean, I don't think I was fully prepared to see what Riley actually looked like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You could be like, "Oh, what happened?" Well, he probably looks a bit bad, but his face, I mean, he looks dead. His face is bloated, purple. He's on life support, of course. It's absolutely horrific. And obviously Sue is angry. Sue is angry with Mia, doesn't want her there, kind of turns her away.
Really, really effective, right? Because I think, again, you could have dealt with that differently where, again, lesser films, she would have just avoided the mom and they wouldn't have had to have that dialogue and that conversation. Or it would have immediately gone, our point isn't important here, but the mom is furious with her and says, "You get away, you've done something to my kid," which makes it an emotionally hard beat, right? Because this is someone who she's seen as a family that she has, and all of a sudden that's kind of completely upended, because in speaking to her mom and that situation that's unfolded, Riley is incredibly injured. Someone who she cares about is at death's door effectively, and the mom basically says, "You come here again, I will call the police. You stay away from us."
Yeah, it's crazy just to see that relationship. Sorry, Becky, go on.
Oh, sorry. I feel like it's another way of sort of creating unease in the horror aspect of it as well, because it's isolating her even further. And we've seen that in other horror films as well, that a lot of the times spirits and demons will isolate who they want to go after. And it's taken away her support system in that. So while it's very, very emotional on the surface, I know when I was watching it myself, I felt very much like, well, she's on her own now. There's no one believe her or listen to her about what's going on. This is when the horror's going to ramp up.
Yeah. And like, even though obviously you have a collection of characters that do know about the supernatural element for the family, Jade was against it anyway. It's not at this point, but later on in another argument, says, "Will you stop just forcing your way into my family, please?"
Yeah.
Which was an incredibly hurtful thing
incredibly hurtful thing, and probably like saying something she didn't mean it, but at the same time she understands what's going to hurt Mia in that moment.
You say something, don't you, when your brother's had his face bashed in, don't you?
You do, and you know who can blame him. And the only person Mia's kind of like reaching out to here is Daniel, because he's kind of not fully part of that family unit either. They've got a bit of history together, so they kind of like are supporting each other through this.
Well, in this situation, this is it. So after that case, she goes and she thinks she sees her mom. It's a
there's a
tiny
couple
scene
of
where she
times,
thinks she
yeah.
sees her mom going into a toilet cubicle and she has to push the door open and there's no one there. But then Daniel comes to her and he gives her a lift home. He's in a bit of a situation himself because he's 18. The police didn't phone his parents, but he, as far as his parents who are religious are concerned, he is staying at his cousin's house. So if he goes home now in the dead of night, it's going to raise questions. So Mia says he can sleep at her house, and there is a scene again. There's a little bit there where it looks like it's something untoward can happen. Like again,
When they touch hands.
yeah, a lesser film, you would just have that he's a flawed character and he's quite happy to, in a moment of like heightened emotion, kiss someone he had a history with at the cost of his current relationship. But it's really good. There is like a moment of tension there, and then he's like, no, I'm not gonna really do that. Like to the point that he's even not sure he should stay over because what would that mean to Jade? And she's like, oh, you're just sleeping over. It's not
Top and tail, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
top and
anything is fine.
Nothing sexual going to come out of top and tail. It's not about to suck on your feet or anything.
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus Christ. So yeah, they fall asleep, and I mean, it's quite obvious that this is a dream sequence at this stage because I mean, talking about Hannibal and dream sequences, this is a great dream sequence that felt like, okay, first of all, I know it's a dream sequence from scratch because somebody's like walked out of bed. You know, that shot where someone looks like someone's asleep and then they just walk forward. We've seen it loads in adverts. Yeah, we understand it's a dream sequence, and obviously is she kissing Daniel in this moment?
Yeah, first they start kissing, and then she sees it's like the pile of clothes in the corner of your room that you look at it at night time. It's like, oh no, looks like a horrible old man.
But again, a different film could have had something rush towards the screen and scream at you, but the way it just kind of creeps out of the darkness, and I mean, it took me ages for my eyes to adjust to what I was seeing. I was almost like, what's going on here? I can see it's a person, but are they supposed to be dead?
It's horrible.
Do they just look dirty? Looks like the woman from The Shining, doesn't it, in the bath?
Yeah. Stayed in the bath too long. You got ever so wrinkly, and now wants some feet, and she's shouting to Daniel, "Wake up!
Some feet.
Wake up!" And then the old woman is there, literally gumming at sleeping Daniel's toes. These are effective. These are effective filmmakers. It's like the cheese grater in new Evil Dead Rise all over again, where no one has ever my entire foot in their mouth. But I can imagine what that would feel like, much like I can imagine if I scraped myself with a cheese grater, and I know I wouldn't like it.
It is just, I mean, it couldn't have gone any worse for me, could it, in that situation? Because
I know you thought he was embarrassed snogging the dog. So it turns out that we go into real life, and Daniel does wake up, only to find like Mia. I mean, admittedly, she has gone out. She has got whited out eyes, like she's.
That never gets
possessed.
mentioned, though. That never gets mentioned. Like, I was possessed, and he goes, "Oh yeah, your eyes were a bit milky." No,
you were chamming on my foot.
Oh, it's brutal. And he's like, "Whoa, get off, get off." I mean, some people are into feet. I'm not one to kink shame. Feet is quite a vanilla thing to be into as well. So, but the whole foot in the mouth, I think I'd draw a line under that.
Yeah, I reckon
2 toes, 3 toes, maybe.
Yeah,
foot. Get it all in there.
I reckon even your standard line of feet people would be like thinking that's a bit much.
That's a bit much for me. That makes me feel sick. Don't want the old foot in there.
One little T is not a choking hazard. Come on.
Yeah. So that's pretty brutal. And obviously he leaves because he's fuming, as you would. I've been violated.
But left alone, Mia thinks, well, I haven't got to do the let me in part, but she does some more talk to me to chat to her mom more directly.
And get some answers, I guess, based on her suicide. But I guess this is important to the character of Mia, though, isn't it, Becci, in terms of speaking to her mum, like getting the answers she seems to crave.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems like she's sort of chasing that closure, but it seems like she's chasing a closure that she wants, because obviously when her dad does speak to her about the truth, she doesn't want that. She doesn't want to believe it. She carries on questioning her mom, And it seems like she wants. I mean, I sort of question whether she did actually know what had happened and whether it was her dad reiterating it to her in the film as well. So how she behaves through the first time she speaks to her mom and afterwards seems to be very much that she wants to believe this reality that she's constructed for herself to sort of help her get through the grief as best she can, rather than facing the fact that her mom was going through something she didn't know about and that she couldn't help
it's
with,
almost like
help either.
because the memories she has of her mum that she looks back at and Snapchat memories or whatever they are, like of them sort of pissing about. What do you have to say to the hater? She sort of says, "Suck my ass."
Yeah.
And I was like that made me laugh. But this is the thing, like so many times in terms of someone who's taken their own life and something, there's always these memories that come up where they're like, this was them 1 week before, this was them 2 days before, like almost like, especially the people closest to them can't make a connection between like someone who's obviously been driven to suicide and how they've shown themselves, the face that they put on mere weeks or days before, how they've projected themselves
in the run up to those things.
So it's almost like she can't make that connection.
And I think she is very she paints a very positive picture of mom. Like in the conversation with Riley early on, she says like, and you can understand her meaning. She'll say like she accidentally took too many sleeping pills. Like none of the characters are stupid. She's not getting across the point that she meant to take 2, but she accidentally slipped and drank all of them. She knows that she took all those sleeping pills, certainly enough to kill her, but she is very protective of the memory of her mother in saying that she didn't intend to do that, while she may have physically intended to swallow that many.
The thing is, something like that, it's just got to eat away at you, where you're like, there's a little bit of doubt there whether you think they did it on purpose or they didn't do it on purpose, because as we're supposed to think that there's not an existence of a suicide note, or not that she remembers, or when her dad sort of explains it to her, that having that doubt there must really eat away at you. We're like, I don't actually know whether they did this on purpose.
And do we feel that there's meant to be some doubt placed on the role of the dad in this one? I feel like, especially the ghosts feed into this, they bring like a suspicion towards him later on. Like the fact that he was sleeping down on the sofa, the fact that she damaged her hands trying to come out of the room, like it's never explicitly stated, but I feel like it does try to seed some distrust in that the dad knew more about it, or maybe had like, rather than had done these things, had locked her in a room because, you know, he thought that was the right thing to do because she was saying something else, or that he was more complicit in these things or guilty of inaction perhaps than you know, I don't think it means to say, the dad was a murderer actually, and it wasn't a suicide, but it implies that he is more involved and more responsible or culpable for what eventually happened than in reality he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely thought it was going to, at one point, thought it was going to go down the road of maybe he did something to the mom, that it wasn't a suicide, it was sort of a cover up. But I am glad that it didn't, because sort of I got the impression that it was very much a lot of what the ghosts were saying wasn't necessarily what the ghosts were saying. It was more in sort of Mia's memory and what Mia was telling herself and what she was thinking.
And it's like taking advantage of.
She felt so deeply damaged by what had happened that she'd rather believe that it was something that her dad did, rather than that her mom had committed suicide and that she knew nothing about it.
How intense was that image of her mum, like the ghost of her mum, like spooning her as well?
Yeah,
like when she fell asleep. Yeah, exactly. It was.
Is this the bit that got you in the cinema, Becky, on your first
watch? It wasn't.
watch?
No, it was them reading through the note that really got me.
That was intense as well.
Because
in that situation, just
that note, the line that got me, I think, was when she said she felt hopeless, but today she feels full of hope, and that was the day that she actually killed herself. Yeah. Okay. So does she go back to the hospital now, or is this when does the note get read out to her? Is
that's right towards the end when the dad actually reads the
right.
note. But now I think we begin to do a little bit more exploration. Is this around the scene where we go and see the brother from the beginning? They go back.
That's right.
They go back to our hand.
I think initially
the hand is in Mia's house now. By the way, she's the one that's brought it home.
Yeah, she's got hold of it. I think initially we see some more of Riley that he's still possessed, and basically every time he tries to come to, he tries to kill himself again. So he's getting like
that's
washed.
right. So
he's getting like washed in the
James Mum
in the
giving him like a
hospital.
bed bath, and then the second the mum steps out the room, he basically gains a little bit of like cognizance, and he's smashing his head into the tiles. And again, it's a scene where
Licking up
the
the
mom
blood.
comes back in, is literally like, somebody do something, actually stop this.
They call a nurse, don't they? And they kind of like they do stop him. But even like that shot of him licking up the blood, and then the shot of the blood going down the plug hole as well. It was all really, really effective.
Yeah.
So yeah, essentially what they tried and work out now is that they need to do something because Riley's still possessed in a way. They talk about they don't know if they shut the door, but then they try and think who did you get a hand from? We need to find out more about the history of this. And then they've tracked down Cole from the beginning, who obviously got stabbed by his brother Duckett, but survived. And Duckett they find him.
And Joss gives us a little bit more background where he says, I got it from a guy called Duckett. I asked him if I could borrow it for a party, and he said I could keep it because he didn't need it anymore because he can speak to them without.
Oh, God. I don't need it anymore. I can speak to him whenever I want. Oh, great. Amazing.
Which also gives us...
Take it home.
This
yeah, you wouldn't.
This is a kind of look forward of the path that Mia is on, right?
Yeah.
At this point. She is now at this point, she's been able to speak to her mom with the hand, but without doing the talk to me thing. She's been able to call what she believes her mom forward.
Yeah.
And then obviously let go of the hand and sleeping in a bed with at the very least an image of her mom.
Yeah.
And Cole wants something to do with them. He's like, no, like getting late, hates Haley and just.
Does anyone else pay to get on this bus? Is what I kept thinking. What is this? Is this contactless or what? How do they get on this bus and the driver don't go? Hang on a minute. Where are you going?
Public transit in Australia. Tap on, tap off with little cards.
That's good. That's good. I like it. So yeah, they speak to Cole. So everyone goes to like speak to Cole essentially to get a little bit more information. He reveals that the spirits are like they weaken longer they stay in your body, so they need to like wait it out. But they're like, no. This is worse than that. The spirits are essentially like killing Riley, like torturing him basically. So they don't have time. This is different. They don't think the spirits are weakening. Do they even say the spirits might be getting stronger? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think I really like this point with Cole. He just makes a point, and I kind of like that. Of all of the films where there's a convoluted, you must do this, you must do that, and it's like, no, they get weaker over time. Just like you do, just have to hold it out, which is converse to what the spirits then start to advise Mia in a little while, right? But
yeah.
He basically sticks to his guns, and at first he doesn't want to talk to them. When he does relent and say, and he hates Haley and Joss, oh, I see, you let a kid do it, like try not ruining people's lives for a change. And then he says he leaves it. They get weaker along their holdout basically, and you'll be okay. And then they leave.
So I think then Mia has an idea where they're like, we need to complete the ritual. We're not sure if we blew the candle out, so maybe we'll do the ritual again and then blow the candle out. That'll be all right, wouldn't it?
They try.
Sounds like an absolutely great idea.
Yeah, they basically want to just we've missed a step, do it again, but unfortunately they can't get him to hold the hand because obviously he's passed out, so he can't do talk to me. It's not called Buddy Talk to him, is it?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you're like, this obviously ain't gonna work, or this isn't working, and they do it like once or twice, and I think we kind of realize that, don't we? And then Mia has another idea where she's like, okay, maybe I'll talk to a different spirit, someone else who's nearby. Maybe they know where he is.
Yeah.
Have you seen this fella? Where is he?
There's a little girl. Says, maybe we can use the thing. If Riley isn't in his body, maybe we can use the hand to talk to him instead. Yeah. But they can't call him. A little girl spirit comes and they do a reverse I let you in, right? Because the little girl, the ghost girl, says I let you in instead of Mia doing it, and she gets the experience of the ghost eyes. Event Horizon energy here, everybody.
Yeah, it looked like Riley is in some sort of undead, terrifying orgy, like under orange lights. Everyone looks like rotisserie chicken. It
Yeah.
looks horrific, and and he's having like Vaseline smeared all over his body, but it's agony.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically in a big old can of tango, or yeah, like you say, he's at the chicken rotisserie. He's on Market Street, down your local
Have you,
Morrison's,
have you
getting
seen
absolutely hammered by ghosts, thumping the
have you
shit
seen the
out of him in
cover
hell.
of? I think it's a recent Fangoria, where the cover is like this shot essentially, or like an official photo of this shot of him like being spooned by the horrible undead, and it's
Thumped by the
horrific.
horriblest ghosts you can think of.
Proper horrible ghosts, like just horrible undead. It's just the lady from The Shining.
Yeah,
100%. That's what it is.
lady from the Shining's got him in a sleeper hold. The greasy stranglers thumping him in the stomach. Like all these
Yeah.
things are happening to him, and like they're just pulling him apart in hell. You know what, Ben? Throw shade on not a film without its merits, but this kind of thing, this kind of almost incalculable horror that you can't even comprehend in the time you see it. That's what I wanted from my return to Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the Hellraiser did some good things. They did some interesting things. They had some very, very visceral moments, but there wasn't a scene in that film where I was like, I can't even really work out what's happening here, but I know it's deeply, deeply unpleasant. Yeah. And I felt like I came away from that film, and I got that from this film, and never would have expected it. And it uses it so sparsely and so carefully that you could overplay this. You could have it as a big, like, lingering scene with intercuts close up on his eyes, looking side to side like it's an episode of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. It doesn't do that. It uses it so sparingly, and it's so effective. I was thinking about that on the way back. I was, that was a horrible scene.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it didn't last for long. It's only a few flashes of the imagery, isn't it? Yeah. But it was
very much like the Event Horizon, like the cutaway bit where they filmed the whole section and we got like a second or two of it in the film.
Yeah. And I think Mia, when she ends up, obviously that hasn't worked, but back at home is when the suicide note gets read to her, which is what Max has been keeping from her, thinking that perhaps she can't deal with it in a way. And yeah, it's basically her mum confirming, yes, she did take her own life, but she felt like she had no choice and she didn't mean to hurt either of them. But yeah, Mia is in disbelief, and she's like, no, she didn't kill herself because she told me. And that is obviously because the ghost is manipulating her, or manipulating her memories of it in some way. Because you even when the ghost is like appearing actually in the scene, right? Actually saying, no, he's lying. Yeah.
And notably here, Mia does go up to her bedroom and continue talking to the ghost, but it very, very deliberately shows us that she doesn't take a bag with her. The hand is still downstairs.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Now, what we think is that Max is banging on the door, like angrily trying to get in, and it keeps cutting back to him sat in the living room, like he can't hear anything like that. So we understand that the ghosts are again checking his text. Yeah. And you know what?
Pee Wee Herman's died. Rest in peace. Sorry. He's there just checking the feed.
I feel like I knew exactly where this was going. And sometimes we have a scene where you're like, I feel like I know where it's going, but there's absolutely nothing I can do to stop it. When you watch a film that you've seen more than once and you know exactly what's happening next, but for some reason part of you is still trying to come to terms with the fact that this is going to happen. Is there a way that we can stop this happening? No, of course there isn't.
Yeah, as soon as you saw that pair of scissors go skittering across the floor, the ghost of her mom is saying, oh, that isn't your dad, they're pretending to be your dad, they're trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
And the door bashing in, and then she's been strangled by a ghost.
Door bashes in, she's been strangled by a ghost dad, and then her actual dad comes into the scene and sees her just lying on the ground, being strangled by an unseen force. And she's reaching for some scissors, and there's a real dad like hovers over her, trying to help her. That is when she shoves them right into his neck.
Right into his neck. Oh,
and just this look on his face. The look on his face is just like confusion, bargaining. Like, just why, isn't it? It is heartbreaking, yeah. What are you going to say?
Heartbreaking. I was going to say that, like, just before this, the ghost of her mom has said, "Oh, don't worry, I've got a plan. I'll look after him. But Riley is suffering. You've got to kill him."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd be like, Ghost Mum, all your suggestions are horrible. Have you got anything better?
Can't you be like Cole, who just thinks, just leave it, just wait a bit,
just leave it, and wait a bit. That's right. I'll be all right in the end. That's my attitude towards most things. No, go and kill him.
Why you wake up one morning? Why have I gone blind in one eye? Just leave it. Just wait a bit.
Just leave it. Be all right now. The eye's actually gone. Nah, I'll be all right. You'll be able to see soon. So then what happens? So then Mia does go to, well, she's obviously going to kill Riley. Well, what we think she's going to kill Riley. She does a trick.
Jade says, "Oh, come round my house. I've got to show you something." Bloody hell! It better be something good. Definitely is. Come. I've got the solution. Come round and see. If it's just your dad with a pair of scissors in his neck again, I'm going to be livid. It's not that. I promise.
To be fair though, he lasts all night bleeding out, doesn't he? He's just sat there.
I think this. Oh yeah, maybe I don't know. Is it overnight, or is it the afternoon that happens?
I thought it was night, and then it was. I'm not sure.
I have to check.
But also, this is a real life horror. How many times has this happened to you, right? Oh yeah, just come over. Ring me when you're outside, and I'll come straight out. So you get there and you go, ring them, or not answering now. Text them outside, unseen. Fuck's sake. Ring them, no answer. Oh, I'll get out. Have I got to get out of the car and go knock on the door?
And you know it's absolutely accurate. It's just they're not ready yet, because no one. I do it with all kinds of folks. It's like, I know you and I've seen you, that your phone is always with you, but you expect me to believe that on this occasion, just when I happen to be phoning you, that after we put you might have spoken to them 5 minutes before you drove round there, and then it's like, all right, I've answered that call, and now, as is tradition, I'm going to throw this phone to the furthest side of my house where I'll never possibly hear it.
When you miss a call.
If that's happening to you, that your friend actually is just ignoring your messages and phone calls, going, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, and they're trying to get ready.
Don't say that. I don't want to think someone's ignoring me. Oh God!
Not because they don't want to see you, Ben. Because they're just not ready to see you yet.
Probably is that. So yeah, Mia's obviously goes to the hospital, and she goes in like pretty much ready to kill Riley, but then suddenly Sue appears, and Sue is obviously being a lot more forgiving and understanding now towards Mia than she was before. She's had some time to process everything that's happened. I'm not sure if she apologizes for how she.
Yeah, she does, because she also accused him of one of the things she accused me of,
drugs.
She didn't say, you put a ghost stand on him. She said, you've given him drugs.
And then she says that she saw the video, and she just says, Riley just had a breakdown. I wasn't ready to accept it.
They had toxicology as well, right? It was just like, they like his blood. He hasn't taken any drugs. So I'm sorry, I was wrong about you. I didn't mean what I said. You're part of Riley's family, and he'd be very happy that you were here.
It's come back possessed by the toxicology reports. Come back possessed by one ghost.
Yeah,
or many ghosts.
Oh, and I think that even when Mia phones Jade before, she goes, actually, don't worry about fixing it. He's woke up a little bit, and he's starting to be a bit more normal. He's getting better.
That doesn't even convince her. Like, he's getting better. Actually, he woke up the other day and he said he just made a joke about something. Nah, he needs to die. I thought maybe this was going to be like pillow over the face scenario, but
classic hospital murder.
No, she takes him out in his wheelchair, and obviously Sue goes off to get something and comes back, and he's gone, where's my son? Oh, I don't know, actually. Where is he? I mean, he was definitely on life support, right? Or was he?
I think maybe that's why it's important that he was starting to get better, so he's not plugged into the wall so much
he's not
anymore.
Just plugged in. And then Jade comes back to the hospital and sees Mia just like pushing him up towards like a busy road. So she's gonna like sling him in there.
Pushing him towards the motor on a wheelchair. Proper, almost like Last of the Summer Wine Antic style, if it had nicer, funnier music. Like they're getting up the embankment. Jade is chasing after them.
This was
Mia
tense.
there's flashes of the scene with the kangaroo and what it means to. I guess that's her inspiration, because I think she does pause and she can't shank him with a pair of scissors. One of those is enough for anyone in a day. So I think that's where she thinks of how they almost mercy killed the kangaroo.
a great shot as well of her mum like appearing behind her, like the hands arriving on the shoulders like that, and just whispering into her ear, telling her what to do. What's him in the road? He loves it in the road.
And
he loves it in the road.
To her vision, Riley is an old man going, but I was like, he's proper Emperor Palpatine taunting her. Going,
it's horrific.
Oh, you have to push me into the road.
I think that might be it. I think that specific type of undead ghosty ghoulie is the one that really gets me, which is like really old lady, a really old man cackling. I think it takes me back to Meg Mucklebones in Legend, with Tom Cruise. Horrible Green Witch comes out the swamp. That always scared me as a kid, and I think
you saw Meg Muckleberg, you wazzer in the road.
Any form of that, like Shining Lady, anything in ghosts. I think other ghosts I can kind of deal with, like little kid ghosts. But yeah, that is just too much for me. Big, bloated, scary, horrible dead.
You're not retraining to become any healthcare the elderly assistant at any time.
Probably not. Probably not.
Otherwise, watch out for the news bristly extended. Man pushes people into road.
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Just a pillow. That's the classic.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's a moment where we see it from the point of view of the car. Again, this is really good. We see it from the point of view of the car, so we can't really work out exactly what has happened. Someone or something falls into the road. Cars begin to crash, and then when
Jade, like, it's all tense. Jade's running out there. She's like feet away, and we get this little pause. This is one of the things. Again, I had my head in my hands, trying to will something to happen, because you feel for the worst in this moment. But maybe the lies come unstuck. She said, "Oh, we have to kill him, otherwise they'll have him forever." And he's like, "Hang on a minute, have him forever? Isn't that what happens when they die?" And then you don't know what's happened. You don't see. You just see the hands moving off that wheelchair, and then, as you say, Ben, you see in the aftermath of what's happening in the road.
Yeah. All the cars crash. Sorry, go on.
As we see the cars, it's one of my. I was gripping onto my seat with the cars. It was one of my worst nightmares. Something like that happening, like just careening out in front of the car and not being able to do anything. So I was really, really tense in that moment. I think it's done so well when you just see like Mia in the road.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Because again, it's a great shot because obviously she regains consciousness, stands up. She's obviously a bit scratched and bruised, but we kind of think, oh, she's okay. But then we kind of see the next few scenes sort of go against that. We see her wander in the hospital. The passage of time has changed drastically because we see Riley's like fully healed in the hospital. And obviously
he's sitting up and having a lovely chat. He's going, and it's really cool use of time compression here. So you see them there, you see them gone. Oh, forgot to say that Jade, when she gets to Mia's house, finds her dad with some scissors sticking out of his neck, alive, but not doing so well.
Yeah, of course. And then this is great. Like when she's running around the hospital and the lights are kind of switching off as she's getting to different parts. I mean, that's awesome. And then obviously the shot of the kangaroo as well, the bleeding kangaroo, just sort of like out of shot. And then again, another great callback when she looks in the mirror and sees that she's got no reflection.
Yeah, so you see some doctors walk past who do have reflections, and then she doesn't have one herself.
Yeah. And did after the car accident, did anyone actually notice her like in the road? She stood up.
Yeah, she stood up. No one runs over to her, and it happens quicker than we've explained it here. Like this happens at a rate of knots, and she sees her dad and calls after him, but he walks away and can't hear or respond to her. What was the two of yours take on that? Is that dad was he okay? Was he healed in hospital and that was him leaving the hospital, or is he also a ghost?
I sort of gathered she was in her own sort of personal hell, personal limbo in it, and even though she's been pushing her dad away throughout the film, I'd sort of got that, it's her remaining parent. She sort of craves that closeness that she had with her mom with a parental figure. She craved it from Riley, she craved it from Sue, from her friends. I feel like even though she was pushing her dad away, it sort of showed that, you know, she did want that familial closeness with her dad. But then in this reality, he's given up on her. He's abandoned
walking
her
away
as
from
well.
her as well.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I don't need to know the answer, but I'm going to speculate about it in my head forever. Like, is the dad alive or dead at this point as well?
I'm assuming because she found him alive that possibly he's alive.
Yeah, because otherwise he would just be dead, I guess. It would just be his
he
body
would
that
just
we
be
saw.
dead.
Functionally, why would you show him
Yeah.
alive? Unless I look it up and the actor famously doesn't like closing his eyes on camera, then like
You can die with your eyes open.
oh, fine. That actor's really crap at sitting still. You can't hold his breath for anything. Like, unless I see something like that, I'm going to assume that if they went to the trouble of showing him alive there, then he must be alive. And even though Riley was in danger, I'm pretty sure Jade wouldn't have gone, sorry, Max, you're on your own, mate. I'm going to get back to the hospital. This was a trick.
I got to save my, I got to go save my brother. And obviously the final sequence is Mia like walking towards like a light or something that she's sort of going towards. I suppose supposed
a
to
light
represent
comes
that
on,
candle.
a door opens, so you light the candle to open the door. So in doing that, in the hospital that is the spirit world, a door is open and we see the porcelain hand held out, and then we get a scene which is elsewhere. I think someone mentioned it might be it's in another country, maybe.
I think it's in another country. They're not speaking
Greece?
English initially, are they?
They speaking Greek?
That I didn't get there. But yeah, obviously now Mia is dead. She's the spirit on the other side, and she's being contacted by some party girls who are playing the same game with the hand, and they say, "I'll let you in." That's the last thing they say, "I'll let you in."
Yeah. I'm sure if I watched it another time, I bet you could even confirm that further by if you see the hand, if you're paying attention, would you see the one in the film? Is it a right or a left hand? And is the one in the end scene the opposite?
Oh yeah.
See, I have seen it more than once, and I did not pay attention to that.
Oh right.
I think you have. I think that's a proper. That's a proper when it's available on home video cassette, being able to pause it and look at that. Right, that isn't something I think if you're enjoying the film, you could be like, "Hang on a second,
hang on." Yeah, but yeah, great ending, and that was that. That was Talk to Me, extensively covered. Did you have any name game at all, Andy?
Got a couple for you all. You ready?
Okay.
Becky, do you understand how the game works? Ben, have you got the rules?
We'll explain it very briefly. I don't think there are official rules. We'll give you a synopsis to a film that sounds a bit like Talk to Me, but based on our clue, you have to work out the title of the film. It's going to sound very similar to Talk to Me. And apologize in advance for, I'm going to say mine, not necessarily yours, Andy.
I've got a good quality one. Would you like me to go first today, Ben? Have you got the synopsis?
Yeah. Okay. So, synopsis is: when a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on the new thrill.
Well, I'll begin then. Speaking of hooked, after losing all of the Lost Boys, Captain Hook decides that he actually doesn't hate children and he adopts a baby. Now, just as the baby is adopted gets out of the crawling phase, he encourages the young child to preambulate himself towards his first mate. What's that film called?
Walk.
Yeah.
First mate, isn't it? Walk for Shmee.
Walk to Smee is what
Walk
the film
to Smee.
Walk to Smee.
Smee.
There you go.
For ages, I was like, what has this got to do with Captain Hook? What's Captain Hook got to do with it?
Yeah, Walk to Smee.
Okay, I've got one for you. We'll try and make it a little, I don't want to say easier. I say mine are usually easier because I only change one word. So a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, but it seems like they can only get in contact with the still living member. Sorry, not the only still living, but one still living member of the cast of The Craft.
Oh.
The cast of The Craft quickly Googles.
She's also in Return to Oz.
Oh. No, that's not her.
Oh, sorry. You can Google it.
I was about like talk to Christina Ricci.
No, it's not her. It's her surname. Or you could say her own name.
You've got the best shot at this, Becky.
It talk to Bailey?
No.
Talk to Tunny?
No. Sorry, it's the actress. Do you give up?
Talk to Skeet Ulrich? No.
That was what I was about to say.
I did say The Craft, didn't I?
Yeah, The Craft.
Oh yeah.
Talk to Neve.
No.
And that's okay. Isn't it?
Robin Tunney.
Do you give up?
Yeah.
Feruza Balk to me.
What?
Oh,
oh,
I'm so sorry.
That's meant to be easier, Ben. Right.
Yeah, it was supposed to be easier. I thought. To be fair, you say The Craft, and that's the only person I think of, really. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, that was the most obvious one.
Yeah. I said Return to Oz as well. It's Dorothy, isn't she?
So, in this film, after experimenting with the severed hand of a sidekick at parties, several teenagers get a rare spiritual urinary tract infection, which means they can only go to the toilet while they're chatting on.
Talk to We.
Talk to We, and also accept Talk to P.
Two very, very good two very good versions. Okay, I'm proud of this one, so stick with me.
Okay.
A group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using the embalmed hand of a deceased painter and decorator, who, when you contact this painter and decorator, will seal gaps and cracks in the walls around your house for you.
Cork.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cork
to me.
Cork to me or Cork for me.
Cork
either accepted.
Been doing some DIY. I'm all up in my cork. Sorry, Becky. You wouldn't have had a chance on that unless you've been DIYing quite as hard as I have been recently.
I was stuck on deceased painter. I thought, how has this got something to do with Rolf Harris? What's going on?
Rolf Harris. In my list of deceased painters, I'd say he's pretty far down the list.
Imagine he turned up on the hand. Blooming hell. Chat roulette that one next.
To be fair, though, I'd love to have a deceased painter and decorator hand that I could talk. I'd get him to do, or her, do all of the odd jobs around the house.
Just possess you while you're going all big and black-eyed, just like 90 seconds at a time. I just want to finish this walk. Give it back.
I hate gardening, so if I could somehow talk to Charlie Dimmock, it'd be perfect. She's not dead though.
Yeah,
she's not dead.
If only knew any dead famous gardeners.
Yeah, sorry. Any more, Andy?
I've got two more for you today, Ben and Becky. So next one. Meanwhile, over in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to broker a peace deal with some blue-skinned aliens, Tony Stark sends pig products to them.
Pork to me?
It's pork to something.
Blue aliens.
Yeah, they're blue-skinned aliens. Ronan the Accuser is one of these.
Oh God, what are they called? Ronan the Accuser. What are they called? Shmee, I keep thinking in my head. You've ruined it for me.
They're not the Skrulls, they're the other ones.
Skrulls and Kree.
Yes, pork to Kree.
Jesus. Only one more, Andy?
One more, yes.
Okay.
After experimenting with a ghost hand and having a lovely time chatting to members of the undead, William Shakespeare is infuriated that his parrot is ignoring him, and he shouts in frustration what he wants the parrot to do.
Squawk for
me?
It's very important that you remember that he's William Shakespeare or someone of that time period. What might they say to a parrot?
For thee.
Squawk for thee. Yes.
You may have said it, Becky, but I think you cut out for a second, so I apologize if I just jumped in there.
We'll give Becky the point for that one, I think.
Squawk for thee. Yeah.
Squawk for thee.
He loved parrots, old Billy Shakespeare. Is that it?
That's it.
There we
Unless
go.
Becky, have you got any? But by all means.
I have not. I like this game though.
It's a pretty good game.
Definitely gonna
It's the
think of
best
some more.
best part of the show, Andy. We should just make it the show, I think.
Well,
Let's just do it.
as you pointed out the other day, Richard Osman has a line of doing this on House of Games, and we've definitely been going.
Yeah, I know. He ripped it off. I'm still fuming about that. Okay.
I will not have a bad word said about him though, Ben. I think I've recently realised that back in the day, I might have wanted fame or success for any number of reasons, but primarily the only reason I think I would like to become a well-known, beloved household name is so I could go on Richard Osman's House of Games.
Yeah. And today we've got Andy Conduit Turner, inventor of the name game. I can imagine that. It'd be great. Okay, so all we got to do now is rate the movie. A to F, pluses and minuses are allowed. So rate good or rate bad. How are you feeling about this one, Becky? I think we know.
I've got to say, for me, it's an A plus. Like,
an A plus.
I don't know if I'd say it's a perfect movie, but to me, it is. Like, I think it hit every single point in a horror film that I enjoy. Like you say, the ghosts in it are the sort of things that scare me. I think how they utilize them, just seeing them very briefly. I think the horror in it was really good. The scares, when there are sort of like jump scares, how they do it as if you were there as well. The shock is felt, like you see the reactions of the people around it. They're reacting to it as you're reacting to it. And it keeps that realistic while also the horror of what the characters are going through in their personal lives and the horror in what's going on in the film. It's just, you really earn the scares at the end. You really earn those final scenes, you going through the pain with them, like experiencing it through, especially through Mia, like through losing her mom, through losing her friends, a support network. I just think it's such an interesting amalgamation of all of its themes that all really pay off. And then it's not to mention like the cinematography. It's a beautiful looking film. The acting is just phenomenal when they are possessed. I think we touched on it briefly, but it must be so fun and getting to do that. And I think it's something you can really sense. But then they really do embody these other spirits that while we've never met them and we only see them for a couple of seconds, we know who they are. We know who these different demons are from existing horror films we've seen. But then it never feels like they're just relying on these old tropes. It's using these things that we've seen before in a new package that makes it interesting. I think it's something a lot of films have tried to do, and they don't necessarily hit it on the nail on the head like this film does. It's definitely made by people who understand their horror history, but want to make something that appeals to a new audience, to bring those two like old horror fans and new horror fans together. I think every element of that just makes it, like the review at the start that you'd said, the future of horror is in really good hands if Talk to Me is anything to go by.
I don't know if I can add anything else to that. I feel like that is probably the best way of like summing up this film. Andy, would you give it as high praise as that?
Yeah, I'm going to go an A for me. I'm giving some room. I could grow into an A plus on this, but I've only seen it the once, so there are some bits that I'd like to go and see again. But for me, the person who will often say that content is infinite and time is not, there is so little that I ever watch multiple times, certainly multiple times within quick succession. But I would go and see this again tomorrow. I really enjoyed it. Really, really high praise. I cannot add anything more meaningful on top of what Becky already said. Like, all of those things are very true. Really loved the cultural aspects. I really loved all the messages, and I really loved it was still enjoyable at a face value thing. So instead of repeating things that Becky's already said, I will ask you both a question. If you were to return to the world of Talk to Me, would you like to see Mia return as a spirit character in any meaningful sense, or would you be more interested in just seeing a completely unconnected story?
I think completely unconnected.
I prefer a completely unconnected story. I feel like this was wrapped up nicely, and I don't want to encroach on the ending that it had.
Yeah. I don't feel like she's got unfinished business or anything like that.
Just a ghost now.
I know she's died young, but I don't think she's got...
I would happily see her as a background character. Like, if you see any more of the spirit world, I would happily see her as one of the spirits you saw in there. I don't have to talk to her. I don't have to see her do anything. it would just be nice to see that, a little bit of a hint to a connected world. But I'm with you. And equally, as much as I would go and see a sequel to this, and I would absolutely cheer and celebrate them making another one, I also don't think it's necessary either. Like, if they just made this one film and the actors and the creators all went off and did something else and never went back to this again, or even if they did a Conjuring and did like another mystical artifact in a world that exists in the same one where there's that same elements of the way the afterlife works. Really, really great. I think it's a fantastic opportunity there.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to agree with that. I think you put it best, Becky, with that analysis. I think just an A for me. I think I usually reserve A+ for like my absolute favorites in the genre. So I mean, even it being an A as a brand new release, I think is a huge deal for me. Yeah. Definitely, I felt I dealt with so many things correctly. It was a good exploration of grief, and something that we see a lot in modern horror films. Grief being used as a sort of a metaphor for something
almost
else.
Overly so, right? And I don't necessarily want to spend all the time slamming others, but part of the things that have driven my disappointment in some things is that it's a popular thing to cover right now. And if you go back a few years, I think The Babadook was very good at it. Another Australian film, coincidence? But then more recently we had Smile, we had The Boogeyman, that touch on these elements and make a monster out of grief and trauma and so on. And both of those, I came away thinking they have merits as films. They have things to enjoy about them as films, but thematically, I was left very quickly with the idea of, I've heard and seen this before, but this felt very new and a very fresh take.
I think it's interesting you mentioned The Babadook. I'd read earlier that both of the directors had worked on The Babadook in
I think I saw that,
roles, and people from The Babadook had came into this.
Yeah.
And I did think they were very, very similar, like very obviously influenced by The Babadook without it being a complete retelling. Because like you said, I agree, like the sort of use of grief can be quite almost overwhelming in horror at the moment. And it's not dealt with in a way that I think Talk to Me did with Talk to Me, even though it's very all-encompassing while also being subtle at the same time. It's all-encompassing in the fact that it's very much focused on Mia and how she's dealing with it, but she's never really saying it out loud or talking about how she feels or anything. You very much get the sense that she's sort of a ticking time bomb in it, of something is going to happen. She's either going to break down in tears or snap how the others did. It's sort of, it's ever present, and yet it's not talked about by anyone around her.
There we go then. Brilliant. Really impressed. I'll be recommending this most definitely. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out as soon as possible. Definitely see it on a big screen, because the sound design was great and really sort of lent itself well.
Go and see it on a big screen, because it's great to see, and because films like this should be supported. I want to hear. Usually I couldn't care less when we see how much money a thing has particularly made it's impossible to win at cinema, but I'd be very encouraged to hear that this has made a really healthy return on its market, because one, it means as international film goes, we get to see more of this stuff get imported, and these people get the attention that studios give people when their films make a lot of money, and they get opportunities to make more stuff.
Definitely. 100%. There we go then. That was Talk to Me. Thanks very much for joining us, Becky. Where can our listeners find more from you online?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. You can find me over on Twitter at Sayce Writes, where you can also find links to all of my work. As I said earlier, I'd work for Metro UK, Digital Spy, and then also smaller genre publications such as Film Hounds Magazine, Ghouls Magazine, and Moving Pictures Film Club, all of which you can find all of their details and all my work for them over on Twitter and over on their websites as well.
Amazing. We'll put links to that in the show notes, of course. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to our current patrons, including John Crinnan, Ben Scaife, Stephen Christopher, Toby Miller, Scott Rigby, Lane Spencer, Ollie Child, Leslie Carlo, Julia Bilgren, Nick Spill, Troy Bursch, Rosalind Harnias, and Pazuzu. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or a review, and head over to the Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors for more. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Just search Horror Hangout Podcast. You'll find us. And next week, we'll be covering Underworld. How exciting. There we go. Maybe just something a little bit different after this week's movie. Don't know how much they're exploring grief in horror with when a vampire versus lichen wars. It's got to be there.
They're trying to understand the true grief that happen when you mix a vampire and a werewolf. Ever so dangerous. Tell you what.
Incredibly dangerous. But yeah, looking forward to that.
Own Kate Beckinsale. Welcome back.
Oh, right. Yeah. There's 5 of those movies as well. I looked at that today. 5 Underworld movies. I was like, what? I thought there was like 2 at the most. 5? Jesus.
Get ready for a marathon, Ben.
Get ready for a marathon. Thanks again, Becky. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Go see this film.
Bye.